Chapter 550. As the 10 transcendent sword saints' souls began to burn, the aura they exuded skyrocketed. In the air, the leader of the 12 Tang clan cavalrymen suddenly shouted, "Defend!" As soon as his voice fell, the 12 Tang clan cavalrymen wielded their sabers to block the attack. In an instant, a saber shield appeared in front of them. At this time the sword rays arrived. Rumble. Rumbling resounded incessantly in the sky above the sword sect. The Tang clan cavalrymen retreated until they were outside the divine martial city. However, the 10 transcendent sword saints' sword rays also disappeared at this moment. However, the 12 Tang clan cavalrymen were still there. However, they didn't have it easy either. Their faces were as pale as paper. Evidently, the final attack from the 10 transcendent sword saints had seriously injured them. The sword sect. Seeing the 10 transcendent sword saints disappear, the sword sect's experts' expressions changed. The leader, Mu Fengchen, was at a loss. The sword sect. Since when did the sword sect begin to decline? He didn't know. All he knew was that the sword sect had begun to decline several generations ago. In the sect, the number of sword saints decreased with each generation. Who was to blame? No one was to blame. Since ancient times, no force had been able to remain at the peak forever. The sword sect's decline was partly due to human factors, but it was mostly due to the law of nature and the general trend. When he took over the sword sect, he wanted to change. He wanted the sword sect to leave the sword sect and return it to its former glory. However, he didn't expect that the sword sect would fall into such a situation. At this time, an old man appeared beside Mu Fengchen. This person was Zhou Xian, the old man who taught Yi Xian consciousness sword Dao. Because Yi Xian was forced to leave the sword sect, he had completely retired and never appeared in the sword sect again. But now he had appeared. Mu Fengchen looked at Zhou Xian. "Junior brother, am I wrong?" Zhou Xian said softly, "You're too anxious. Senior brother, I agree that the sword sect needs to change. However, what you need to do is not change. What you need to change is ambition. Our sword sect is currently at its lowest point. How can we be ambitious?" Mu Fengchen remained silent. Zhou Xian continued, "The founding ancestors' intention wasn't to stop our sword sect from developing, but to protect our sword sect. Have you ever wondered why our sword sect has enjoyed such a transcendent status for thousands of years? Because we don't fight. Therefore, my sword sect has always been aloof from the outside world for thousands of years, and all the major forces have always maintained respect for my sword sect." At this point he looked at Mu Fengchen. "Senior brother, the founding ancestors' intention is not to stop us from fighting, but not to fight for immediate benefits. During our sword sect's peak, we had dozens of transcendent sword saints. At that time, the current sect leader's strength was even more heaven-defying. However, did he lead the sword sect out of Shenwu City? No. That sect leader and the current swordsman, what are they fighting for? It's the Grand Dao." Mu Fengchen looked up at the sky. "The Grand Dao." Zhou Xian nodded. "We are strong. Who in the world dares to bully our sword sect? If our sword sect still had 10 transcendent sword saints, would the Tang clan dare to step into our sword sect?" At this point he looked at Mu Fengchen. "When you and Xianfeng coveted that supreme treasure, I've already told you that if a swordsman places all his hopes on a supreme treasure, it means he has no confidence in himself. Senior brother, you don't have any malicious intent towards the sword sect, but you are too selfish and ambitious. Our sword sect doesn't have the strength to support your ambition. Do you understand?" Zhou Xian understood very well that the sword sect's founding ancestor wanted the sword sect's future generations to study the sword Dao. The founding of the sword sect was not to dominate the heavens, but to provide a home for the swordsmen. Of course, at the same time, it was to ensure that no one dared to bully these swordsmen. And now, the sword sect had violated the sword sect's founding ancestors' will. Zhou Xian was about to speak when the Tang clan's eldest young miss spoke abruptly. "Are the two of you done?" Zhou Xian looked up at the young lady of the Tang family. The next moment he suddenly shot up into the sky. A sword howl shot into the sky. Mu Fengchen's expression changed drastically when he heard this sword howl, and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked up into the sky. At the instant that Zhou Xian shot into the sky, the Tang clan's eldest young miss's expression changed as well. Meanwhile, 2 old men suddenly obstructed her path, and they were experts on the same level as Elder Yuelao. However, a ray of sword energy slashed down. His 2 bloody heads fell to the ground. It was an instant kill. In the next moment, a sword slashed down towards her. Her gaze was icy cold. She pressed her fingers together and a speck of black light appeared. Bang! An explosion resounded as the speck of black light instantly exploded, and the Tang clan's eldest young miss instantly retreated over 3 kilometers. She retreated until she was outside Divine Martial City. Meanwhile, Yu Wuchen suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground. Slash! A sword slashed through the sky from the sword sect and it seemed like it could split the world apart. Meanwhile, 12 Tang clan's cavalrymen suddenly appeared in front of her, and they slashed their sabers forward at the same time. 1,000-meter-long saber chi tore through the sky and slashed towards the sword. Rumble! The entire sky shook violently and the space in an area of over 10 kilometers cracked apart. Moreover, the saber energy practically exploded apart in an instant. Meanwhile, the leader of the 12 Tang clan's cavalrymen roared furiously, again. The 12 of them overlapped and slashed down at the same time. A bright ray of saber energy tore through the sky. At the same time, the 12 of them vanished at the same time, and then numerous rays of saber energy slashed down like a storm against the sword energy. The powerful sword energy was forcefully stopped at this moment, and then a single breath of time passed before a saber tore through the sky and slashed the sword energy into pieces. At this moment a figure flashed by. A figure and a ray of sword energy. This person was Yu Wuchen. The 12 Tang clan's cavalrymen in front of Yu Wuchen suddenly roared in unison, "Break!" The 12 of them drew their sabers at the same time. A sharp sound tore the surrounding space apart. However, as the ray of sword energy arrived, rumble! The 12 Tang clan's cavalrymen were blasted out of Divine Martial City. In the sky, Yu Wuchen held his sword and looked coldly at Tang clan's young miss and the others. Meanwhile, everyone in the sword sect was looking at Yu Wuchen. Or rather, everyone in Divine Martial City was looking at Yu Wuchen. Extraordinary sword saint. Yu Wuchen wasn't a Dao realm expert, nor was he a sword saint. He was an extraordinary sword saint. Below, Mu Fengchen looked blankly at Yu Wuchen in the sky. Master. Back then you didn't pass the position to junior brother because you wanted him to focus on the sword Dao. In the surroundings, countless disciples of the sword sect were also looking at Yu Wuchen. Their blood was boiling. Extraordinary sword saint. Yu Wuchen's appearance had undoubtedly allowed them to see a ray of light in the darkness. Wu Wen looked at Yu Wuchen in the sky with a grave expression. Extraordinary sword saint. If Yu Wuchen had attacked Wen that day, Wen would have suffered great losses. Might even have changed the outcome. A transcendent sword saint was one of the most supreme experts in the entire Chaosverse. Yi Xian was also slightly shocked. He hadn't expected that the old man who had taught him would be so strong. In the sky above Divine Martial City, Yu Wuchen looked at the distant eldest miss of the Tang clan. My sword sect doesn't want to fight. But if we have to fight, then my sword sect doesn't fear anyone. Eldest miss of the Tang clan looked at Yu Wuchen. An extraordinary sword saint wants to stop my Tang clan? You're thinking too much. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and a voice transmission talisman shot into the sky. Bang! Suddenly, a huge crack appeared in the sky. In the next moment, a powerful aura came from the crack and a middle-aged man walked out. The middle-aged man wore a tight black robe and carried a saber on his back. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, the Tang clan cavalrymen bowed in unison. Greetings, honorable sir. The middle-aged man nodded slightly. Then he looked at eldest miss and bowed slightly. Greetings, eldest miss. Eldest miss nodded. Thank you, honorable Xiao. Honorable Xiao smiled. It's my duty. As he spoke, he turned around to gaze at Yu Wuchen who stood nearby and he spoke softly. An extraordinary sword saint. Please provide me with your guidance. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly drew his saber, and an expanse of light surged forward. At this moment, the entire sky was covered in this expanse of light. At the moment that Honorable Xiao drew his saber, Yu Wuchen suddenly pressed his fingers together and pointed forward. In an instant, a sword left a ray of light behind it as it tore through the sky. As soon as the sword appeared, the ray of light in front of Yu Wuchen was instantly torn apart. The sword shot forward and slashed towards Honorable Xiao. At this moment Xiao Zuantong leaped up, and in the next moment, a long blade directly slashed the long sword. Bang! The sword was blasted flying, but it wasn't long before it was caught by a hand. It was Yu Wuchen. Yu Wuchen looked towards Wun and said, "Watch carefully." As soon as he finished speaking, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and suddenly vanished. In an instant, the entire sky above Shenwu City was covered in sword and saber lights. In the dark, Zhou Xian stared at the sky. He knew that Yu Wuchen wanted him to watch. The two of them were fighting in close combat. The speed of the two of them was too fast, so fast that it exceeded his current understanding. Because after using the Dragon Soul he could barely see the two of them clearly. He knew that this was an opportunity for him to reach a higher level of sword Dao. As the two of them fought in the sky above Shenwu City, the entire space was shattered. Everyone was watching the two of them. The outcome of this battle would determine the fate of the Sword Sect. Without the Sword Sect's founding ancestor's soul as a trump card, an extraordinary sword saint could be said to be the Sword Sect's last hope. After about 15 minutes, the two of them suddenly separated in the sky, but the next moment, the entire sky was filled with sword and saber lights. In Zhou Xian, who had been staring at the sky, slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, Tang family's eldest daughter suddenly shouted, "Kill!" As soon as her voice fell, the 12 people behind her suddenly rushed down. Below, Mu Fengchen's expression became ferocious. "All disciples of the Sword Sect, listen to my command, fight to the last man." Then he almost roared, "My Sword Sect will never compromise. My Sword Sect will never compromise." In the Sword Sect, the voice of countless swordsmen soared into the sky, resounding through the clouds. P.S. The demand for physical books is too high. I plan to order 10 more books, which will be the last 10. The reason why I won't sell them is that I can give them as gifts, but I can't profit from it because it involves copyright and other aspects. I have the right to give them as gifts, but I don't have the right to sell them. All of you should understand. You can leave a message in the book review section. Don't enter my activity post because there are too many comments. You can leave a message in the book review section because it's the easiest to win. For the last 10 books I will be stricter. I will read each and every comment. Also, I would like to thank all the readers who came to support me this time. Please subscribe to the original version. Thank you very much. Chapter 551. Never Compromise. This was the spiritual belief of the Sword Sect. What was a swordsman? A swordsman who would rather break than bend. No matter how strong the enemy was, a swordsman had to have the courage to draw his sword. No surrender, no peace, and no compromise. There was only one word to describe it: fight. This was how the Sword Sect used to be. At that time, the Sword Sect didn't fight and didn't leave Divine Martial City, but would anyone dare to look down upon the Sword Sect? Even though the Sword Sect was at an absolute disadvantage now, not a single person was afraid. Sword intent. Countless strands of sword intent shot into the sky within the Sword Sect, and they circled in the air for a long time. Moreover, they were growing stronger and stronger. The eldest young miss of the Tang clan looked down at the Sword Sect with an emotionless expression. Never compromise? Let me see how tough the bones of the Sword Sect are. As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her head to look at Xiao Juntong. Don't hold back. In the sky, Xiao Juntong suddenly stopped, and his right hand held tightly onto the hilt of his saber. After a moment of silence, he suddenly drew his saber and slashed forward repeatedly. In an instant he'd slashed 10 times in succession. Bang! Every single slash from Xiao Juntong would cause Yu Wuchen to move 300 m back, and when Xiao Juntong slashed 10 times, Yu Wuchen had moved 3 kilometers back. Moreover, the space between them had become pitch black. The entire space had been slashed apart by Xiao Juntong's saber. However, it didn't take long for the space in the sky above the Sword Sect to return to normal, and a wisp of blood was flowing down from the corner of Yu Wuchen's mouth. The expressions of the Sword Sect disciples instantly became solemn when they witnessed this scene. Did he lose? Zhou Xian looked up at Yu Wuchen in the sky as well. Did he lose? Yu Wuchen gazed at Xiao Juntong and Xiao Juntong smiled. Please provide me with your guidance. Yu Wuchen said calmly, as you wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. At the same time, he placed his sword against the center of his forehead. In an instant, a powerful strand of sword intent and sword chi suddenly converged within his body and into his sword. To be more precise, it converged at the tip of his sword. Crack! The space above the sword began to split apart inch by inch. In the distance, Xiao Juntong narrowed his eyes and gripped his saber tightly in his left hand. After a moment of silence, Yu Wuchen suddenly took a step forward. His left hand's fingers slid down the blade of the sword. Slash. The sound was like thunder. As soon as his voice resounded, a snow-white ray of light tore through the sky. A sharp tearing sound resounded. In the distance, Xiao Juntong suddenly unsheathed his saber and dashed forward. Behind him, countless afterimages appeared. Kill. As Xiao Juntong's voice rang out, a blade energy suddenly slashed at the sword light. There was a moment of silence. Boom. The sky suddenly shook violently as countless rays of light exploded apart. At the same time, a figure was blasted flying. It was none other than Xiao Juntong. The faces of the Tang clan's eldest young miss and the others instantly fell. At this moment, Yu Wuchen, who was still in the air, suddenly took another step forward. As soon as he finished speaking, another ray of light slashed forward. Outside Divine Martial City, Xiao Juntong had just swung his saber when his figure was blasted flying again. Another 3 kilometers away. In the sky above the sword sect, Yu Wuchen took another step forward. This time the sword in his hand flew forward. At this moment the ray of light was like a scorching sun, and it was so formidable that others didn't dare to look at it directly. Xiao Juntong suddenly laughed savagely, and then he drew his saber and swung it repeatedly. Rays of light shot out incessantly, but they were instantly shattered as soon as they appeared. Meanwhile, a ray of light suddenly flashed through the sky. Xiao Juntong raised his saber to block it, but the ray of light had already appeared behind him. The surroundings fell silent. Everyone was staring fixedly at Xiao Juntong. Crack! The knife in Xiao Juntong's hand suddenly split open, and at the same time, the space between his eyebrows split open. He lost. In the sky, the faces of the Tang clan's experts sank. However, the Tang clan's eldest young miss was still expressionless. Xiao Juntong looked at Yu Wuchen in the distance. What an extraordinary sword saint! As soon as he finished speaking, countless rays of sword energy suddenly slashed out from his body, and he was instantly sliced into countless pieces. Good. Countless disciples of the sword sect suddenly cheered. We won. Even Mu Fengchen's face relaxed. No matter what, he didn't want the sword sect to perish. In the sky, Yu Wuchen looked at the Tang clan's eldest young miss, and the latter suddenly clapped her hands and laughed. What an extraordinary sword saint! If the sword sect had a few more extraordinary sword saints, my Tang clan would really have to reconsider. Yu Wuchen looked at the Tang clan's eldest young miss. Is a life and death struggle good for your Tang clan? The Tang clan's eldest young miss laughed. Hand over the treasure and we will leave. If you don't, it's not a life and death struggle, but your sword sect will die. At this time, Mu Fengchen appeared in front of the Tang clan's eldest young miss. The treasure is not in the hands of my sword sect. The old man can swear on his soul. Hearing this, the Tang clan's eldest young miss narrowed her eyes. Swear on his soul. A sword sect swearing on his soul was no joke. Is it really not in the hands of the sword sect? The Tang clan's eldest young miss was somewhat puzzled. Mu Fengchen continued, that Yi Xian is a cunning man. Do you think his words are trustworthy? The Tang clan's eldest young miss fell silent. Just as Mu Fengchen wanted to say something, Yi Xian suddenly appeared on the right not far away. Everyone present shifted their attention to Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Mu Fengchen stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You caused my sword sect to fall into such a situation. What do you think? You're very proud of yourself, aren't you? Yi Xian smiled. Sect Master Mu, don't say that you're the victim. Isn't it your own doing that the sword sect has fallen to such a state? Mu Fengchen's right hand tightly gripped the sword in his hand. Yi Xian looked at the Tang clan's eldest young miss. Lady Tang, if you've investigated me, you should know that I, Yi Xian, might not be strong, but I've never betrayed my friends. What about the sword sect? I've already joined the sword sect, but the sword sect actually chased me out of the sword sect because of that treasure, and even framed me for stealing the sword sect's treasure. As he spoke up to here, he swept a glance at the sword sect disciples. The sword sect has placed a bounty on me, accusing me of stealing the sword sect's treasure. Then let me ask, does that treasure belong to the sword sect? The Tang clan's eldest young miss looked at Mu Fengchen. Sect Master Mu, I'd also like to know, does that treasure belong to the sword sect? Mu Fengchen's face turned dark, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian spoke up. It's fine if you're slandering me. In order to kill me, the sword sect actually went to Wuyuan to deal with my sister and friends. What did the sword sect go to Wuyuan for? To target a little girl. Where's your face? Where's your fucking face? Yi Xian. Mu Fengchen stared at Yi Xian in anger. Yi Xian suddenly barked. What about you? Old dog Mu, you and your grandson have killed so many sword sect disciples because of your greed, don't you feel heartache? Now that the sword sect has fallen to such a state, how can you face the ancestors of the sword sect? Mu Fengchen glared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, enough with this old man. The treasure is clearly in your hands. Yi Xian laughed coldly. In my hands? That day when I handed over the treasure, your sword sect threatened Yi Lan and the others, forcing them to leave Shenwu City. He then looked at Yi Lan, who was standing behind Miss Tang. Senior Yi Lan, you saw it with your own eyes. You saw it with your own eyes. How arrogant was the sword sect that day? They lied through their teeth, saying that the treasure belonged to the sword sect. They even threatened you. Do you still remember? Yi Lan glared at Mu Fengchen. How can I forget? That day the sword sect was really something. They even said that if we didn't leave we would never be able to leave Shenwu City. Mu Fengchen's expression was extremely ugly. Yi Xian continued, Sect leader Mu, you said that the treasure is in my hands. Then let me ask you, that day when the treasure fell into your hands, how do you think I was going to snatch it from the hands of so many powerful cultivators? Don't tell me that the treasure grew its own legs and can walk on its own? Mu Fengchen retorted angrily, it did walk on its own. As soon as he said this, everyone turned to look at Mu Fengchen. Yi Xian shook his head and sighed, you're shameless to this extent, what else can I say? Since you said it's in my hands, then it's in my hands. Yi Xian, don't bother arguing with you anymore. Mu Fengchen glared angrily at Yi Xian. He was so angry that he nearly spat out blood. Yi Xian ignored Mu Fengchen. At this moment Mu Fengchen suddenly said, Yi Xian, do you only know how to talk glibly? Yi Xian looked at Mu Fengchen. Then shall we fight one-on-one? Mu Fengchen narrowed his eyes. As you wish. As he spoke he was about to make his move. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly exclaimed in shock. You really want to fight me one-on-one? Where's your shame? Don't you have any shame? Mu Fengchen stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. At this moment he had regained his composure. He realized that Yi Xian was purposely trying to provoke him so that he would make a mistake. At this time Yu Wuchen looked at Yi Xian with complicated feelings. When Yi Xian came to Sword Sect, he fancied Yi Xian's talent and potential. Unfortunately, the Sword Sect pushed this genius away with their own hands. What he didn't expect was that the Sword Sect not only pushed Yi Xian away, but also wanted to kill him. Now the Sword Sect and Yi Xian had no chance of redemption. Because the Sword Sect was too ruthless. Yu Wuchen sighed in a low voice. Kid, since things have come to this, I don't want to say anything more. You and the old man are on different sides now. The old man will not show mercy to you because I am a member of Sword Sect. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Yu Wuchen turned to look at Miss Tang. If you don't believe me, the sect leader of Sword Sect, the old man swears on his soul that the treasure is not in the hands of Sword Sect. Lady Tang smiled. So it's in the hands of young Master Yi. Yu Wuchen said, this thing has a spirit. It's not strange for it to run away by itself, isn't it? Moreover, the old man believes that with Lady Tang's wisdom, she should be able to understand many things. Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, do you have anything to say? Yi Xian shook his head. No. Mu Fengchen looked at Yi Xian and sneered. Aren't you very talkative? Go on. At this time Lady Tang suddenly said, no, that treasure is not in young Master Ye's hands. It's in the hands of your Sword Sect. Mu Fengchen looked at Lady Tang in astonishment, but the latter was expressionless. She opened her palm and another voice transmission talisman soared into the sky. The next moment the space above the Sword Sect suddenly cracked and several powerful auras swept out from the crack. Yu Wuchen stared at Lady Tang. Since we're enemies we should kill them all, right? Lady Tang's lips curled up. The Sword Sect has been preparing for many years. Since we're here, how can we return empty-handed? Then she looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, can you help us? Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then said, sorry, my stomach hurts. Talk to you later. After saying that he turned around and ran. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yi Xian ran very fast. He knew very well that after this Lady Tang dealt with the sword sect, she would definitely come after him immediately. This woman was very shrewd. Chapter 552. Eldest Miss Tang hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually turn around and run away. Obviously, Yi Xian had seen through her intentions. At this moment the atmosphere was slightly awkward. Destroy the sword sect or not? Eldest Miss Tang remained silent. If it was destroyed, then the sword sect would definitely fight to the death and the Tang family would definitely have to pay a price. If it wasn't destroyed, then they would have shed all pretenses with the sword sect. Moreover, the sword sect was at its weakest right now. If they didn't destroy it now, then once the sword sect recovered, they would have to pay a huge price if they wanted to destroy the sword sect. Destroy it? Not destroy it? Eldest Miss Tang was hesitating. On the other hand, everyone from the sword sect was looking at the woman who stood before them. Any decision she made might change the fate of the sword sect. Needless to say, Yu Wuchen felt helpless at this moment, or rather he felt slightly sad. Since when did the sword sect have to live by the whims of others? But now the sword sect couldn't be unyielding. If they didn't fight to the death with the Wuyuan sect, then the sword sect would have no problem protecting itself with the formations and the ancestral souls. But now the sword sect had suffered heavy losses, and they couldn't fight the Tang family to the death. So it was best not to fight if they could. The decision to fight or not didn't lie in the hands of the sword sect, but in the hands of the Tang family. Right at this moment Yilan suddenly said, "Eldest Miss, if we don't destroy the sword sect now, then once the sword sect takes revenge in the future. Moreover, the sword sect has been accumulating wealth for many years. If we can obtain the wealth of the sword sect, you should know that the family is expanding and needs wealth. If we can obtain the wealth of the sword sect, then we won't have to worry about wealth for the next few years." The eldest daughter of the Tang family remained silent and did not speak. Yilan continued, "Besides, the sword sect is obviously in cahoots with the Order Alliance. If we let them go this time, they will definitely side with the Order Alliance. On the other hand, once we enter into conflict with the Order Alliance in the future, the sword sect will definitely take revenge against us. So I suggest that we pay a small price to annihilate the sword sect. Especially now that the sword sect has lost its ancestor's clone, it's the best opportunity for us to act." When he spoke up to here, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Eldest young miss, so long as we annihilate the sword sect, then even if that treasure isn't in the sword sect's possession, we can just look for Yi Xian. But if we don't destroy this sword sect, once this sword sect joins hands with Yi Xian and Wuyuan, it will be extremely disadvantageous to us if the Star Lord gets involved. If we destroy the sword sect and Yi Xian is the only one left, Wuyuan would never be able to protect him. By then it would be much easier for us to deal with him. Even if Wuyuan were to protect him, it wouldn't be difficult for us." The eldest young Miss Tang looked at Yu Wuchen in the distance. "I wonder if the sect is interested in joining the Tang clan." Everyone turned to look at the eldest young Miss Tang when they heard this. Even Yilan stared at the eldest young miss in disbelief. This eldest young miss is even more ruthless than me. She wants to subdue the sword sect? Yu Wuchen's expression instantly turned gloomy when he heard the eldest young Miss Tang's words. "You want the sword sect to submit to the Tang clan?" The eldest young Miss Tang smiled. "Your Excellency, we're working together." Yu Wuchen laughed icily. "Working together? Do you believe that?" The eldest young Miss Tang smiled. "It looks like the sect has no intention of working together with the Tang clan." Yu Wuchen looked at the sword sect disciples below him. "Are you willing to surrender?" "Surrender?" The sword sect disciples below him roared in unison. "Ning Zhan dies." Yu Wuchen turned to look at the eldest young Miss Tang. "Are you aware of the sword sect's attitude?" The eldest young Miss Tang replied indifferently. "Ning Zhan dies? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm and there was a voice transmission talisman in her palm. Suddenly, Yu Wuchen, who was standing not too far away from her, suddenly vanished and a ray of sword light slashed towards the eldest young Miss Tang. It was obvious that Yu Wuchen wanted to strike first to gain the upper hand. Since the Tang clan was unwilling to give up, the sword sect would naturally strike first before the powerhouses of the Tang clan arrived. Yu Wuchen's attack was extremely swift and he arrived in front of the eldest young Miss Tang in the blink of an eye. The eldest young Miss Tang remained expressionless and did not dodge. However, right when Yu Wuchen's sword was 1.5 m away from her, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of Yu Wuchen. In the next moment, a saber struck the tip of Yu Wuchen's sword. Bang! Yu Wuchen instantly returned to where he stood earlier. Everyone looked towards the eldest young Miss Tang. There was a figure in black armor standing in front of her. The figure was tall and around twice the size of an ordinary person, and he wore a black helmet that concealed his appearance. Moreover, there was a sheathed saber hanging from his waist. Yu Wuchen gazed at the armored figure with a solemn expression in his eyes. Meanwhile, Lady Tang suddenly said, "Will the sword sect surrender or not?" When she spoke up to this point, she suddenly chuckled. "The sword sect will definitely not surrender now that I've asked this question. Wait a moment." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and the voice transmission talisman suddenly shot into the sky. It didn't take long for a group of cavaliers to charge out from the spatial rift in the sky above the sword sect. The Tang clan's cavaliers. There were a total of 16 of them. Moreover, there was a group of experts in tight black clothes and black longbows in their hands. There were a total of 9 of them. The expressions of the members of the sword sect changed when they witnessed this scene. It wasn't just the sword sect. Even Wu Wen and the others from Wuyan had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. There were a total of 37 extraordinary experts. Coupled with the armored figure by the eldest young Miss Tang's side, such a lineup. Even the joint forces of the sword sect of Wuyan might not be able to resist it. Has the Tang clan become so strong? Wu Wen's eyes were filled with deep worry. In the beginning, the sword sect of Wuyuan felt that they were the top power in the chaotic universe. But now it seemed like the sword sect in Wuyan had fallen behind slightly. When they had the clone of their ancestor, the sword sect in Wuyan still had something to rely on. After all, the clone of their ancestor was extraordinarily heaven-defying, and it could be said that no matter how many came, they would die. But now the clone of their ancestor was gone. Whether it was Wuyuan or the sword sect, they had lost what could be considered their strongest trump card. When he thought up to here, Wu Wen sighed in a low voice. If the sword sect and the martial institution didn't have internal strife and joined forces, then who would dare to invade divine martial city with the clones of their ancestors present? But now, at this moment, he also felt danger. In the sky above the sword sect, as the Tang clan expert appeared, an invisible pressure instantly enveloped the entire sword sect. This was the suppression of strength. In the sky, Lady Tang looked at Yu Wuchen. "I'll ask you again. Are you going to surrender or not?" Yu Wuchen was about to speak when Mu Fengchen suddenly said, "Lady Tang, do you believe that the treasure is not in the hands of the sword sect?" Lady Tang looked at Mu Fengchen. "It's not important." Mu Fengchen said solemnly, "It's very important. Lady Tang, I can guarantee you that if we fight today, the sword sect will give up everything and at least 90% of your experts will die. By then, how are you going to fight against Zhou Xian? Or do you really think that swordsman is that simple?" That day, the Astral Lord gathered the experts from several starfields to attack Neverending Starfield. But what was the result? All the experts were killed, and even the Astral Lord's clone was killed. Have you never thought about this? Lady Tang shook her head. "Sect Leader Mu, I don't care about Zhou Xian now. I only want to ask you one question. Will the sword sect surrender or not?" Mu Fengchen's face darkened when he heard that. He had wanted to divert Lady Tang's attention, but now it seemed that she wanted to destroy the sword sect. Or rather, she wanted to swallow the sword sect whole. He suddenly looked up at Lady Tang as if he had thought of something. "Your target is not only the treasure but also the sword sect. You're wrong." Yu Wuchen spoke softly from the side. Their original objective was only that precious treasure. But the sword sect was stupid enough to fight Wuyuan to the death. Not only did they fight to the death, but they also used their trump cards one after another. So their target was not just the treasure. We gave her the chance. Now not only does she want to devour my sword sect, she also wants that precious treasure. Comparing the sword sect to Zhou Xian, she chose to get rid of us first because the sword sect is stronger than Zhou Xian. After taking care of the sword sect, Zhou Xian will be the only one left. It's easy to take care of them. Lady Tang smiled. The sword sect is truly stupid for not allowing you to be the sect master. As she spoke, she raised her right hand and was about to swing it. Meanwhile, Mu Fengchen suddenly said, "The sword sect is willing to work together with the Tang clan." As soon as he spoke, everyone looked at Mu Fengchen. Even Yu Wuchen looked at Mu Fengchen with disbelief in his eyes. Meanwhile, all the experts of the sword sect looked at Mu Fengchen as well. Everyone thought that they had heard wrong. Surrender? Mu Fengchen gazed at Miss Tang. The sword sect is willing to work together with the Tang clan. Miss Tang revealed a spurious smile. What kind of cooperation? Mu Fengchen was about to speak when Yu Wuchen spoke abruptly. Senior brother, do you know what you're saying? Mu Fengchen's expression was icy cold. Junior brother, do you really want the sword sect to vanish from this world? Yu Wuchen gazed at Mu Fengchen and remained silent. Mu Fengchen continued. The sword sect's 10,000 years of foundation can't be destroyed in our hands. Yu Wuchen shook his head. Do you know that if we kneel, the sword sect's 10,000 years of reputation will be destroyed in our hands? Not only will we be unable to raise our heads high, but the ancestors of the sword sect who created countless honors will die with everlasting regret. Moreover, if we kneel, the swordsman of the sword sect will become a sword in the hands of others. Would a sword without freedom and dignity still be sharp? Would we still rather break than bend? Mu Fengchen spoke fiercely. But are we going to let the sword sect vanish from this world? Anything is possible so long as we're alive. In any case, I don't want to let Yi Xian benefit from this. Yu Wuchen suddenly vanished. A ray of sword light instantly pierced through Mu Fengchen's head. Mu Fengchen's eyes were wide open, filled with disbelief. He never thought that this junior brother of his would suddenly attack. Everyone looked at Yu Wuchen in the air. Yu Wuchen spoke softly. You're right. Anything is possible so long as we're alive. But if we have to live on our knees, then our sword sect would rather not have that. We, the swordsmen of the sword sect, can accept defeat, can accept death, but we will never live on our knees. As he spoke, he looked down. All disciples of the sword sect, heed my command. Even if our sword sect perishes, we will perish with dignity and dignity. Kill. Kill. Countless swordsmen's voices resounded like thunder in the sword sect. The sword sect directly attacked. P.S. I picked a few yesterday. One of them, I think his name is Me Tang 512. I left you a message twice, but you kept asking for books every day. Are you a devil? Didn't you read your own comments? Once again, I thank all the readers. There are still 7 books left. These are the last 7 books. I hope everyone can keep a calm heart because there are many who don't have it. However, it doesn't mean there is no chance. No matter what, this event is a benefit for everyone. I hope everyone can be happy. That's why I won't sell them. If I sell them, the nature of the event will change. Also, I really read your comments one by one. It's just that some of the replies are slower. I thank all the readers. Especially the readers who are willing to spend money to support the original version. Chapter 553. Surrender? Yu Wuchen hadn't even considered that. Why couldn't he? Just as he'd said, dignity, backbone, and if there was one more, then it would be pride. Since the sword sect had existed until now, when had it ever lowered its head to its enemies? It hadn't in the past, and it definitely wouldn't now. The reason Yu Wuchen had attacked Mu Fengchen was because Mu Fengchen wanted to lead the sword sect to kneel. He'd been able to tolerate Mu Fengchen earlier because even though Mu Fengchen had selfish motives, it was for the sake of the sword sect in the end, and he had the sword sect in his heart. But now, Mu Fengchen's actions were undoubtedly equivalent to betraying the sword sect. If the sword sect really surrendered, then the countless seniors of the sword sect would truly die with everlasting regret. Yu Wuchen led the charge towards the experts of the Tang clan. Meanwhile, the other swordsmen within the sword sect charged towards the experts of the Tang clan as well. At the same time, the sword sect activated all its sword formations. At this moment, the sword sect didn't dare hold back at all. They'd used all their trump cards. Sword formations appeared incessantly from the sword sect, and countless rays of light crisscrossed through the sky. For a time, the sword sect actually had the upper hand. Of course, it was mainly because of the sword sect's sword formations. Most of them had been left behind from thousands of years ago, and they could kill Dao realm experts with ease. Of course, there was a flaw, and it was that it consumed a huge amount of energy. Every single sword formation consumed a huge amount of energy. But at this moment, the sword sect naturally wouldn't fuss about it since it was about to be annihilated. Tang clan's eldest young miss was expressionless in midair, and the armored man by her side didn't attack as well. Meanwhile, Elder Yuelao spoke solemnly, "Eldest young miss, will suffer heavy losses if this continues." She fell silent. Elder Yuelao continued, "Should we send another group of experts over?" She glanced coldly at him. Why don't we send all the experts of the Tang clan over? Yuelao hesitated for a moment and then he said, but if this goes on, it will be disadvantageous to us. Miss Tang looked at the armored man beside her. Stall that sword, Saint. The armored man nodded. In the next moment he appeared in front of Yu Wuchen. Boom. An explosion suddenly resounded. The eldest daughter of the Tang family said again, attack. Yuelao and the rest also rushed out. Sword rise. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from below the sword sect. In the next moment, the swords in the hands of countless disciples of the sword sect shot into the sky. In the air, a dozen or so Tang clan cavalrymen suddenly stood in a row, raised their sabers and slashed down. Chi-chi. A wave of saber light slashed down and in an instant, a series of tearing sounds resounded above the sword sect. However, there were people dying in the sword sect every second. Archers. The arrows of the 9 archers could be said to have never missed their targets. Besides the Dao realm experts, the other experts of the sword sect couldn't stop their arrows at all. However, some of the experts of the Tang clan had fallen as well, and 5 Tang clan cavalrymen had fallen. The combat strength of the swordsmen of the sword sect wasn't to be underestimated. Especially when coupled with the sword formation, even the Tang clan cavalrymen found it difficult to resist. Overall, the Tang clan held the advantage. Yuan. Liantian spoke in a low voice by Wu Wen's side. The sword sect probably won't be able to hold on for much longer. Wu Wen spoke in a low voice. If the sword sect is annihilated. Liantian gazed at Wu Wen, Master. Wu Wen spoke softly. The eldest daughter of the Tang clan is extremely ambitious. If that precious treasure isn't in the hands of the sword sect, then who will she deal with? Yixian, of course. Although Yixian isn't from Wu Yuan, he's inextricably linked to Wu Yuan. At that time, it's extremely likely that she'll use this as an excuse to deal with our martial arts institution. At that time, how will Wu Yuan resist the Tang clan? Liantian spoke in a low voice. Master, you mean to help the sword sect? But if we do that, it's no different from declaring war on the Tang clan. Wu Wen looked in the direction of the sword sect. Without the lips, the teeth will be interdependent. Regardless of whether we offend them or not, they will definitely target Wu Yuan. As he spoke up to this point, he slowly clenched his right hand. Pass down my order. All the experts of Wu Yuan are to support the sword sect. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shook, and he directly charged in the direction of the sword sect. Liantian hesitated for a moment and then hurriedly followed. Soon the experts of Wu Yuan rushed towards the sword sect. Wu Wen was very clear that this Tang family Missy's ambition was too great. With the sword sect gone, her next target would most likely be Wu Yuan. At that time no one would help Wu Yuan. In the sky above the sword sect. As the experts of Wu Yuan joined in, the situation instantly changed. Especially when Wu Yuan also activated the formation and began to target the Tang clan's knights. In the sky, Tang family Missy's face turned extremely ugly. She did not hesitate. Everyone retreat. Soon all the experts of Tang clan retreated out of Shenwu city. As for the sword sect and Wu Yuan experts, they did not chase. Both sides faced off in the sky. Tang family Missy stared at Wu Wen and asked, "What is the meaning of Wu Yuan?" Wu Wen spoke indifferently. This Shenwu city is not Tang clan's territory. Please leave with your people. The corner of Tang family Missy's mouth lifted slightly. It was a cold smile. What a great Wu Yuan. Speaking up to hear, her expression suddenly became somewhat ferocious. I think Wu Yuan wants to be buried with the sword sect. With that, she opened her palm, and a transmission talisman suddenly soared into the sky. In Shenwu city, Yu Wuchen appeared beside Wu Wen. His expression was rather complicated. Brother Wu Wen spoke softly, let's not talk about the past. What's important now is to get through this together. Yu Wuchen nodded slightly. The two looked into the distance. Obviously, this Tang family Missy had called for reinforcements again. Soon another group of cavalry appeared in the sky above the sword sect. A total of 20 people. Not only that, there were also 2 giant apes the size of a small mountain. The moment these 2 giant apes appeared, the entire sky directly trembled as if there was an earthquake. It was incomparably frightening. At this time, Lady Tang suddenly looked at the spatial crack and said coldly, "My good brother, why are you so stingy? Can't you give me a bit more in one go?" At this time, an illusory man suddenly appeared at the spatial crack. The illusory man looked down at Tang family Missy. This is already the limit that the family can give you. If you fail this time, my good sister, you will be sitting on the bench. With that said, he turned around and disappeared. Lady Tang's expression was cold. She did not expect Wu Yun to suddenly attack. This time she had forced herself into a desperate situation. Outstanding Tang family children can mobilize a portion of the Tang family knights, but there is one requirement, and that is, it must bring benefits to the family. As long as it brings benefits to the family, anything is negotiable. But if the cost exceeds the return, then the problem will be huge. She has no way out now. Because a few Tang family knights have died, it is not easy to train these knights. It can be said that each of them is cultivated with a huge amount of resources. Of course, if she can take down the sword sect, Wu Yun, and that supreme treasure, even if all the Tang family knights die, it will be worth it. Thinking of this, her face gradually turned cold. She looked at the Shenwu city, and just when she was about to speak, Wu Yun suddenly said, "Let the Tang family see our Wu Yun's trump card. Let's show them our trump card." Behind him, He Liantian suddenly turned around and disappeared. After a few breaths, a powerful aura suddenly soared into the sky from the Wu Yun. And then a super stone statue appeared in front of everyone. This super stone statue was twice the size of the giant ape. Not only that, but in the Wu Yun 3 white-haired old men suddenly appeared, but all 3 of them are soul bodies. Martial Saint. Seeing these 3 people, Lady Tang's face turned extremely ugly. At this time Yu Wuchen suddenly said, "Attack." As soon as his voice fell, 18 swords suddenly flew out from the sword tomb in the back mountain of the sword sect. Soon the 18 swords hovered above the sword sect. Each sword is actually at the fortune realm. Most importantly, every single one of these swords contained a powerful sword Dao will. These swords were once the swords of the ancestors of the sword sect. No matter where they are, as long as they have no successor, their swords will return to the sword sect. And the ancestors of the sword sect used these powerful swords to create a sword array. This can be said to be the last trump card of the sword sect. After the 18 swords appeared, a monstrous sword aura directly enveloped Lady Tang. The armored expert of the Tang family suddenly stood in front of Lady Tang. And not only that, the Tang family iron cavalry also stood in front of Lady Tang. Danger. This was what all the experts of the Tang family felt at this moment. On the other hand, Lady Tang's expression was calm. She glanced at the 18 swords, then looked at Yu Wuchen. "If I'm not mistaken, these 18 swords can only be used once, right?" Yu Wuchen's face was expressionless. "Even if it can only be used once, I can still spare your life." As Lady Tang said, this sword array can only be used once. The reason why these 18 swords are so powerful is that they contain the sword will of the sword sect's experts. Once activated, these sword wills will disappear, and at that time, these swords will become pure fortune realm artifacts. Lady Tang sneered, "You want to take my life? Aren't you being too confident?" Yu Wuchen said indifferently, "These 18 swords contain the sword will of 18 transcendent sword saints, as well as 18 super sword arrays. Once activated, even gods and ghosts can kill them, let alone you. If you don't believe me, the old man can let you have a try now." Lady Tang was about to speak, but at this time, the armored man beside her suddenly said, "Unstoppable." Lady Tang looked at the armored man and he said again, "Unstoppable." Hearing this, Lady Tang's face sank. Not far away, Wu Yun suddenly said, "Lady Tang, the old man can't say for sure that he will win, but if Wu Yuan and the sword sect join hands, even if you can win, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. At least 80% of the people you brought with you will die here, maybe even all of them. At that time, Wu Yuan and the sword sect will perish together and you will get nothing. As for the experts of the Tang family, I believe that you won't dare to come to Shenwu City with your entire army. You also have enemies, right?" After a moment of silence, Lady Tang said, "Retreat." After that, she turned around and left with the experts of the Tang family. But not long after, she suddenly stopped and turned to look at the direction of Shenwu City. If it's just Wu Yuan and the sword sect, the Tang family naturally won't pay such a big price to deal with you. But if Wu Yuan and the sword sect have that treasure... Speaking of this, the corner of her mouth slightly lifted. Wu Yuan said in a deep voice, "You know that the treasure is with Yi Xian." Lady Tang shook her head. "No, it's not with Yi Xian, it's with you." Hearing this, Wu Wen and Yu Wuchen's faces turned ugly. At this time Lady Tang said again, "Young Master Yi, I know you are in the dark. I will tell you this, the door of the Tang family will always be open to you. You are welcome to join us, ha." Chapter 554. Soon Miss Tang disappeared with the Tang clan's powerhouses. Wu Wen and Yu Wuchen heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts when they saw this scene. Because if the young miss of the Tang family didn't leave, then there would only be one outcome, and that would be mutual destruction. Whether it was Wu Yuan or the sword sect, they did not want to be destroyed together. In the dark, Yi Xian looked in the direction Miss Tang left and said softly, "That woman is really sinister." The words that this woman had said before she left were actually meant to sow discord. To sow discord between him and Wuyan as well as the sword sect. Needless to say, the sword sect and Wuyan would definitely be on guard against him now. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and disappeared quietly. Plotting against him? Not a chance. In the sky above the sword sect, Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wen and said softly, "Brother Wu Wen, what my sword sect did to Wu." Wu Wen shook his head. "Let's not talk about the past. Now that you are in charge of the sword sect, I hope that both sides can put down all grudges and face everything together." He knew very well that Wu Yuan and sword sect did not have their strongest trump card. If both sides did not join forces, Shenwu City would definitely change hands. Yu Wuchen nodded. "Brother Wu Wen, put it down. From today onwards, my sword sect and Wen will live and die together." Live and die together. Whether it was Wu Wen or Yu Wuchen, both knew very well that the sword sect and Wu Yuan were interdependent. Whoever died, the other side would not have a good ending. And if both sides joined forces, then any force that wanted to destroy them would have to pay a terrible price. At this moment, Yu Wuchen suddenly said softly, what Miss Tang said before she left, "Sowing discord." Wu Wen said solemnly, "That woman hoped that we would target Yi Xian, or rather she did not want Yi Xian to stand on our side." Yi Xian. Yu Wuchen's expression was rather complicated. In fact, if he could turn back time, he would have chosen to directly suppress Mu Fengchen and his grandson. However, he had his concerns at that time. First, if he tried to suppress Mu Fengchen and his grandson, it might lead to an internal strife in the sword sect. After all, Mu Fengchen and his grandson had been running the sword sect for many years. They had absolute authority in the sect. Moreover, at that time he somewhat agreed with what Mu Fengchen and his grandson had done. If Yi Xian were to stay in the sword sect, it would not be a good thing for the sword sect. However, he did not expect that Mu Fengchen and his granddaughter would try to kill Yi Xian after chasing him away, and would even be stupid enough to snatch the treasure. This was something he hadn't expected. When he found out, everything was set in stone. Wu Wen suddenly said, "We cannot have any dealings with this Yi Xian." Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wen. "Brother Wu Wen, isn't this exactly what the Tang family's eldest daughter wants?" Wu Wen shook his head. "There's no other way. Yi Xian is a whirlpool. If he is in the divine martial city, he will bring more troubles. Because with him around, those people will definitely target our Wu Yuan and the sword sect at all costs. But without him, if they want to target us again, they will have to first ask if it's worth it." Yu Wuchen said solemnly, "His sister and friends are in Wen, those people." Speaking up to this point, his heart suddenly jolted. Mentality. He realized that after he took charge of the sword sect, his mentality had changed. He admired Yi Xian a lot, this was something he had never concealed. But after he took charge of the sword sect, he realized that between Yi Xian and the sword sect, he would subconsciously choose the sword sect. For the sake of the sword sect, he would even have some thoughts that he once disdained. For example, asking Yi Xian, his friends, and his sister to leave the divine martial city. Although this thought was fleeting, it still appeared. Yu Wuchen looked in the direction of the sword sect's sword tomb with a complicated gaze. In the past, he was the most talented person in the sword sect and also the strongest. But the previous sword sect's sect master, who was also his master, had passed the sect master position to Mu Fengchen. He couldn't figure out why this was happening. He even had some resentment in the past. But now he finally understood. His master not passing the position to him was actually for his own good. If he took charge of the sword sect, he might not be able to break through to Transcendent Sword Saint in his lifetime. As a sect master, no matter what he did, he had to be overcautious. And this kind of mentality would definitely affect the sword Dao. At this time, Wu Wen suddenly said, "I'll go talk to him." Yu Wuchen retracted his thoughts and looked at Wu Wen. "Will he cooperate with you?" Wu Wen said softly, "Yes." Because he values his friends and sister very much. For them he will definitely cooperate. Also brother Yu, from now on, whether it is your sword sect or my Woon, we need to maintain 120% vigilance, to prevent that woman's sudden attack. Yu Wuchen nodded. Understood. I have already ordered all the sword sect disciples outside to rush back. There were a few swordsmen in the sword sect who were actually outside to gain experience, and among these people, there was no lack of Dao realm experts. However, some of the swordsmen had left the sect for a very long time, some even more than 100 years, and it was unknown whether these people were still alive or dead. But as long as they were not dead, these swordsmen would definitely rush back. Soon Wu Wen left with Wu Yuan and the other experts, and the sword sect returned to peace. Of course, the hearts of the swordsmen were not at peace. The current sword sect was in a mess. This time the sword sect could be said to have suffered heavy losses. Not only were there only 6 Dao realm experts left, but the sword sect had also lost half of its savings. It could be said that the sword sect did not dare to activate the sword formation without restraint anymore. This was because every single sword formation consumed a lot of energy. At this moment Yu Wuchen suddenly said, "Bury those who sacrifice themselves. Apart from that, no one is allowed to leave Shenwu City from now on." As he spoke, he looked at Mu Fengchen's corpse with a complicated gaze. "Bury him well as well." With that he turned around and walked towards the sword tomb. As the Tang clan's experts retreated, the entire Shenwu City gradually calmed down. However, the entire Shenwu City had become a little empty. The battle between the sword sect and Wu Yuan had caused a group of people to leave, and the invasion of the Tang clan's experts had caused the few remaining people in Shenwu City to leave. No one dared to stay in Shenwu City. They were all afraid of being implicated. Outside Shenwu City in a mountain range, the Tang clan's Missy sat cross-legged on the ground. Not far from her stood a group of knights, and beside her was the armored man. After a long time the Tang clan's Missy opened her eyes. She stood up and looked at Shenwu City with a cold gaze. Yuelao said in a deep voice, "Missy, what should we do now?" "What should we do?" The Tang clan's Missy narrowed her eyes. "What do you think we should do now?" Yuelao shook his head. "Now that Wu Yuan and sword sect have joined forces, if the clan does not send experts over, I'm afraid more than 90% of us will die even if we take over Shenwu City." The Tang clan's Missy shook her head. "The clan will not send experts over." Yuelao frowned slightly. "Why?" The Tang clan's Missy said indifferently, "Because someone in the clan has an opinion. The people we have are more than enough to seize that treasure." Yuelao asked, "Give up Shenwu City?" The Tang clan's Missy didn't say anything. Yuelao said again, "Missy, that treasure is really in the hands of that Zhou Xian?" The Tang clan's Missy said softly, "Most likely. We have been fooled by this person since the beginning. Not only us but the sword sect has also been fooled by him. This person is not only powerful but his intelligence is also not low." Yuelao nodded. "This person is not like a swordsman. And now he is hiding in the dark. We can't do anything to him. The only way is to attack Wu Yuan, but Wu Yuan has joined forces with the sword sect." Speaking up to here, his face darkened. Now he realized that they really could not do anything to this Zhou Xian. The Tang clan's Missy also fell silent. The current her was extremely angry. Originally she could take down the sword sect and then deal with Zhou Xian. By then not only could she deal with Zhou Xian, she could also take down Wu Yuan. Unfortunately, Wu Yuan suddenly helped the sword sect and ruined all her plans. Especially that Zhou Xian, he was extremely cunning. Once he saw that the situation was not good, he immediately fled. After a while the Tang clan's Missy suddenly said, "Go contact the star regions that attacked Never-Ending Star Region." Yuelao hesitated, then said, "I'm afraid they don't have the guts to come again." Lady Tang said indifferently, "I don't believe that they don't want revenge." Yuelao nodded slightly. "Old man, go and try." With that he turned and left. Lady Tang looked at Yilan beside her. "Help me contact some people." After a while Yilan also turned and left. Lady Tang looked in the direction of Divine Martial City. "Then I'll play with you, Yishen." Speaking up to here, her eyes gradually turned cold. Wu Yuan. In the martial arts hall, Yi Xian stood quietly. Not far in front of him were Wu Wen and He Liantian. Wu Wen glanced at Yi Xian. "Little friend Yi, you should know why the old man sent you here, right?" Yi Xian smiled. "Senior Wu Wen wants me to leave?" Wu Wen nodded. "You must leave. My Wuyuan cannot withstand the Tang clan and countless other forces' attacks. Yi Xian said in a low voice. If I leave, they will still come to Wuyuan to find me. Wu Wen looked at Yi Xian. You should know what to do. Yi Xian smiled. Of course he knew what to do. He couldn't hide. He had to keep showing himself to attract the Tang clan's attention, then lead them somewhere else. As long as he showed himself, the Tang clan would definitely look for him, and they wouldn't pay a huge price to target Wu Yuan and the sword sect. To put it bluntly, he had to go out and attract their attention. Wu Wen said in a low voice, I'm sorry, we have no other choice. Yi Xian smiled. Take good care of my sister and my friends. I don't want Wu Yuan to hand them over for self-protection. If that's the case, then I can take them and leave now. He still had the prison pagoda. Naturally, he could take them and leave, but that would be very dangerous, very dangerous. Something happened to him, everyone would die. Wu Yuan looked straight at Yi Xian. Don't worry, my Wu Yuan will never betray them for self-protection. Yi Xian nodded. I will remember Senior's words. Senior goes back on his words. I will kill everyone in Wu Yuan at all costs. If Senior keeps his words, I will stand on Wu Yuan's side at all costs, and attract everyone's hatred at all costs. After saying that, he turned and left. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and said, Tell my sister her brother won't let anyone harm a single hair on her. If anyone does, then I, Yi Xian, will die. After saying that, he walked out. P.S. Because there are 4 readers who didn't come to me for their books, I have decided to draw a new one. Because there are only 6 books, I will only pick the handsome ones. Let me see how many readers can be mentioned in the same breath as me in terms of appearance. Those handsome readers who only read books and vote, you can't keep a low profile anymore. Come out. Chapter 555. Watching Yi Xian leave, Wu Wen remained silent for a long time. Beside Wu Wen, He Liantian said softly, What will this guy do? Wu Wen shook his head. No matter what he does, it has nothing to do with us. At this moment, Qin Shan suddenly rushed in. Yiling, that girl is gone. Hearing this, Wu Wen and He Liantian's expressions changed. The current Yiling was even more precious than before. Because the sword sect's founder had removed the restriction on Yiling's constitution, the current Yiling could reach the Dao realm in half a year at most. Moreover, there was no limit to Yiling's growth. The two of them disappeared. On an empty street in Shenwu City, a little girl rushed out of Shenwu City. Brother. The little girl cried as she ran. Her tears were like a broken dam. Soon, the little girl rushed to the gate of Shenwu City and shouted towards the outside, Brother. There was no response. At this moment, Wu Wen appeared in front of Yiling. Yiling looked at Wu Wen and felt wronged. Grandpa Wu, where is my brother? Wu Wen said softly. He left. Yiling squatted on the ground and held her face with both hands. She cried bitterly. He doesn't want me anymore? At this moment she did not look like a manifestation realm expert at all. At this moment she was a little girl panicking because she lost her brother. Wu Wen squatted in front of Yiling and said softly, Girl, it's not that he doesn't want you. He left to protect you. Do you understand? Yiling shook her head and tears flowed uncontrollably. I don't understand. I just want to follow him. I just want to follow him. As she spoke, she suddenly stood up and rushed outside. Brother. Wu Wen hurriedly stopped Yiling. Girl, do you know that you are his biggest weakness in this life? Yiling looked at Wu Wen. Her tears seemed endless. Wu Wen spoke in a low voice. Your brother is strong, extremely strong. However, he has a weakness, and his greatest weakness is you. The sword sect didn't defeat him, and neither did the Tang clan. But you defeated him, and you defeated him very easily. Do you understand? Yiling clenched his fists and said nothing. Wu Wen continued, You are his greatest weakness. If you were captured by the Tang clan, what would happen to him? Now that you're following him, can you help him? Girl, the current you needs to cultivate properly. Only when you are strong enough can you not implicate him and even protect him. Do you understand? Yiling clenched her fists. She didn't say anything. She just cried. She kept crying. Wu Wen said softly, As long as you are strong and safe, no one will be able to threaten your brother. Do you understand? Yiling wiped the tears off her face and looked around. Brother, I'll work hard. But you must promise me that nothing will happen to you. You must come and find me. You must. The surroundings were incomparably quiet. There was no response. Wu Wen said softly, He heard me. Yiling looked around blankly and said in a trembling voice, "Brother, can you come out and see me for a while? Just for a while. I promise I won't pester you. I promise to go back and cultivate properly. Can you come out and see me for a while?" However, there was still no response. Yiling cried even harder. Wu Wen's expression was rather complicated. He knew that the Yi Xian siblings had depended on each other since they were young and had a deep relationship. However, he didn't expect that this pair of siblings had such a deep relationship. Yiling wiped the tears off her face and pulled Wu Wen's hand. "Grandpa, let's go." Wu Wen nodded and pulled Yiling toward the divine martial city. When they reached the gate, Yiling suddenly stopped. She turned around and shouted, "Brother, if you die, I definitely won't live." After saying that, she turned around and ran toward the divine martial city. At the city gate, Wu Wen turned his head and looked somewhere before turning around and leaving. Outside the divine martial city, Yi Xian suddenly appeared. He looked at the divine martial city with a calm expression. However, there were 2 streaks of tears on his cheeks. After a while, Yi Xian said softly, "Girl, brother will live well." After saying that, he turned around and left. After a while, Yi Xian arrived at a mountain range. In front of a pool, the young lady of the Tang clan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. She looked in the opposite direction and saw someone standing there. All the experts of the Tang clan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled faintly. "Lady Tang, I came here to tell you something." Lady Tang smiled and said, "What is it?" Yi Xian smiled faintly. An illusory Xiaota suddenly appeared between his brows. Seeing the illusory Xiaota, Lady Tang narrowed her eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I want to tell Lady Tang that the treasure is in my hands, and I am going to the Order City now. Lady Tang, we will meet again." After saying that, he disappeared. No one made a move because it was not Yi Xian's real body that came, but a clone. The Order City. Lady Tang's expression was extremely cold. The Order City was the territory of the Order Alliance. Beside him, an old man said in a deep voice, "He wants to lure us away." Young Mistress Tang looked at the divine martial city. She just looked at it calmly. However, everyone present could sense the rage of this eldest young Mississippi. The best way to make Yi Xian stay was to attack Wu Yun. But now that Wu Yun and the sword sect had joined hands, it would be very difficult for her to take them down. Especially Yi Xian. If she attacked Wu Yun now, Yi Xian would definitely help. Even she did not dare to underestimate Yi Xian now. She had to be wary of a killer who could kill a Dao realm swordsman in seconds. Moreover, if Yi Xian went to the Order City now, if she attacked Wu Yun, there was no guarantee that Yi Xian would not hand over the treasure to the Order Alliance. Once the treasure fell into the Order Alliance's hands, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for the Tang clan to get it back. Or rather, they would have to pay a price that was at least 100 times higher than what they were paying now. After all, the Order Alliance was not something that Yi Xian and the Divine Martial City could compare to. Yi Xian's trip to the Divine Martial City had once again ruined all her plans. The old man next to Lady Tang said, "Why don't we inform the family and ask them to send experts here? For that treasure, the family will definitely be willing." Lady Tang shook her head. "If we do that, we will force him to hand over the treasure to the Order Alliance. At that time, it will be difficult for us to get the treasure." The old man said in a deep voice, "Young lady, that treasure is so important. Why didn't the family come in person?" Lady Tang shook her head. "He can't touch it. If he does, the one from the Order Alliance and the one from the Monster Clan will definitely take action." The old man understood. If the Tang clan's strongest expert took action, the Order Alliance and the Monster Clan would definitely not sit idly by. Because no one wanted to see a situation where one clan was the strongest. Similarly, the Order Alliance's Star Lord could not take action himself because if he did, the Tang clan and the Monster Clan would also stop him. Lady Tang suddenly said, "Everyone split up and head to the Order City." Saying this, her expression gradually turned cold. Killing intent flickered in her eyes. As the Tang clan's experts left, Wu Wen and Yu Wuchen looked at each other in the sky above the holy martial city. Both of them felt relieved. At this time, Wu Wen suddenly said, "We still can't be careless." Judging from this incident, the Tang clan and the Order Alliance obviously have a bigger plan. And we, without the Ancestor's clone, is equivalent to losing a deterrent force. Ancestor's clone. Whether it was Wu Wen or Yu Wuchen, they felt a little bitter in their hearts. Was the ancestors' clone strong? Of course it was strong. Killing Dao realm experts was like killing chickens. Moreover, judging from the sword sect's ancestral master's attack, even a transcendent sword saint level expert would most likely be killed in a second. With the two clones, unless the Tang clan used the entire clan's strength, it was impossible to take down the sword sect and Wuyuan. However, the sword sect and Wuyuan had an internal conflict and called the two ancestors out to fight. The problem was, the relationship between the two ancestors was not ordinary. Stupid. Whether it was Wuyuan or the sword sect, what they did this time could be said to be extremely stupid, especially the sword sect. It was especially so for the sword sect. Originally, the sword sect wanted to summon their ancestor to swallow up the martial institution and unify the divine martial city. However, they didn't expect that after their martial ancestor appeared, he directly killed their ally. He called out his biggest trump card to fight himself. Every time Yu Wuchen thought of this, he could not let it go. Wu Wen said softly, "I'm afraid the peace of this chaotic universe will be broken with Yi Xian's treasure." Yu Wuchen nodded, "I hope our two clans can survive this storm." Wu Wen looked at the distant horizon and said softly, "Actually, I'm most curious about the person behind Yi Xian. Until now, that person has not appeared. Is he worried about something?" Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wen. "Brother Wu Wen, what strength do you think the person behind Yi Xian has?" Wu Wen shook his head, "I don't know. However, the person behind him is definitely not simple. Moreover, Yi Xian also gives me a mysterious feeling. That treasure fell into the hands of your sword sect, but it returned to his hands in the end. There is only one explanation, that treasure has already recognized him as its master." Hearing this, Wu Wen's face changed. "This?" Wu Wen looked at the horizon and said softly, "I'm afraid that the Tang clan and the Order Alliance can't do anything to him, and when the time comes they will target his sister." Yu Wuchen wanted to say something but hesitated. Wu Wen also did not ask because he knew what Yu Wuchen wanted to say. However, Wuyuan would not give up on Xianxia and Yiling. This was because Xianxia had already obtained the inheritance of the Wuyuan ancestral master, and Yiling's seal had been removed by the sword sect ancestral master. These two people would definitely shock the heavens in the future. Yu Wuchen sighed softly. The Tang clan, the Demon clan, the Order Alliance. They have already started to pay attention to Yi Xian. This Yi Xian situation, Wu Wen said softly, it depends on his own luck. In a boundless starry sky, a sword flew quickly. The sword's speed was very fast, and after traveling for an unknown amount of time, it finally arrived at a small island. In the center of the small island, there sat a woman in a plain dress. She was playing chess. The woman raised a white chess piece and placed it down. A moment later, a black chess piece quietly landed on the chessboard. As this black chess piece landed, the outcome of the game was immediately decided. The woman in the plain dress was silent. At this moment, the chess piece on the chessboard suddenly disappeared and a line of words appeared. 50 great Daos for 9 heavenly evolutions, 1 man escapes. P.S. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 556. Looking at the line of words on the chessboard, the plain-dressed woman fell silent. Just then, the sword slowly floated to the plain-dressed woman's side. It floated quietly and did not disturb the plain-dressed woman. After a long time, the plain-dressed woman suddenly chuckled. The great path is life, and life is like a game of chess. You can either be a chess piece or a player. With that, she waved her hand and the line of words disappeared. Just then, the sword beside her flew to her and trembled slightly as if it was saying something. After a while, the plain-dressed woman smiled and asked softly, "Is he okay?" The sword trembled and a faint sword hum sounded. After a moment of silence, the plain-dressed woman suddenly looked at a small flower not far away. The flower was delicate and beautiful. The sword suddenly pointed to the right. Clearly, the plain-dressed woman was following it. The plain-dressed woman shook her head. "I've already led the way for him. He should walk the rest of the way himself." With that, she looked at the small flower and smiled. A flower that is protected by others cannot withstand the wind and rain. The sword trembled slightly as if it was saying something. The woman in the plain dress smiled and said, "The great Tao is something that is walked out, not protected by others." With that, she held the sword in front of her and walked towards the distant horizon. In the air, the sword trembled as if it was saying something. Where are you going? The plain-dressed woman looked at the end of the starry sky and smiled. To kill people. By the time she finished speaking, she had already disappeared. And on the chessboard on the island, another line of words appeared. Tao cannot be spoken, Tao cannot be spoken, Tao can be spoken, Tao is not Tao. Order City in the Chaotic Universe. Order City was located in the Northern Wilderness Realm and was under the jurisdiction of the Order Alliance. It took Zhou Xian less than half a day to reach the Northern Wilderness Realm. Because of the interstellar teleportation formation. There was an interstellar teleportation formation in the Shenwu City. With this formation, the entire chaotic universe could be said to be very small. And from the observed world, Zhou Xian learned that there was a higher-level teleportation formation other than the interstellar teleportation formation, the space-time teleportation formation. This teleportation formation was very terrifying. It would take less than 15 minutes to travel from the southern wilderness region to the northern wilderness region. When the Tang clan's experts came to the Divine Martial City, they used this formation. However, this kind of formation also consumed a lot of resources. Ordinary forces simply couldn't afford it. Zhou Xian looked at the Order City in the distance, and the introduction of the Order City appeared in his mind. Order City. This used to be the capital of the Order Alliance and was once the most prosperous city in the entire Northern Wasteland domain. However, it was no longer the case. This was because the Lawful Order Alliance had moved their capital to the Sky Mountain Range in the north of the Northern Wasteland domain. It was now the most mysterious Sky Mountain city in the Northern Wasteland domain. The reason why it was mysterious was because the Order Alliance didn't allow outsiders to enter Mountain Ascension City. Therefore, that place was extremely mysterious. As for the Order City, although it was no longer the capital of the Order Alliance, it was still bustling with activity. The entire orderly city was filled with the aura of history. This was Zhou Xian's first impression. Zhou Xian did not openly enter the Order City. He could not defeat the Tang clan, let alone the Order Alliance. Moreover, he knew that the Order Alliance definitely knew that he was coming to Order City. These major forces did an excellent job in gathering information. On the streets, Zhou Xian walked slowly. He was currently wearing a black robe and a black veil. Coupled with the chaotic energy that concealed his swordsman aura, ordinary people would not be able to detect him. On both sides of the streets, people came and went. They were all martial artists. Moreover, some of their auras were very powerful. Apart from that, he also sensed that there were a few hidden powerful auras in the city. After a while, Zhou Xian found an inn. In the room, he sat cross-legged on the bed and entered the World Prison Pagoda. Cultivate. Although he was stronger than before, the enemies he encountered now were also stronger than before. He needed to improve his strength now. Zhou Xian found the wooden puppet and began to spar with it. The wooden puppet's strength lay in its exquisite close combat swordsmanship. In close combat, it had a fatal suppressive force and targeted power. Right now, he had a huge flaw in close combat. Right now, his flying sword was strong, but his swordsmanship was very poor. Zhou Xian used the wooden sword and began to spar with the wooden puppet. Although he had already reached the 10,000 Laws realm, if he did not use some powerful sword skills, he would still be somewhat suppressed when fighting with the wooden puppet. Of course, if he used his trump card and the soul-suppressing sword, the wooden puppet would definitely not be his match. Zhou Xian practiced like this again and again. The next day, Zhou Xian suddenly sat on the ground. He had been training hard for 12 to 14 hours. It had to be said that sparring with this wooden puppet was very enjoyable. He had the same feeling when fighting with people in Qing City. When fighting with people in Qing City, it was a close combat fight. If one's reaction was slow, they might lose their life. In that kind of environment, playing to the limit, playing to the heartbeat. And now, when he was fighting against the wooden man, he felt the same feeling again. Very crazy. Very exciting. One careless move and he would either die or be injured. After resting for a moment, Zhou Xian stood up and began to spar with the wooden puppet again. Inside the prison pagoda, Zhou Xian was crazily cultivating while the emperor dog was sleeping soundly. For demonic beasts like them, sleeping was the best way to cultivate. As for Xiaolinga, she was still planting her spirit fruits. Right now she had hundreds of spirit fruits. If these spirit fruits were sold, they would definitely be worth a city. It could be said that other than those few creation realm treasures, Zhou Xian was not as rich as her. However, this little guy valued spirit fruits more than his life. Zhou Xian did not dare to sell this little guy's spirit fruits. This little guy would go crazy. Xiaolinger had already occupied the 5th floor. Soon she came to the entrance of the 5th floor. She held her chin with both hands and looked at the 6th floor, deep in thought. And beside her there was a sword. She picked up the sword and walked to the entrance of the 6th floor several times, but she seemed to be worried about something and gave up in the end. Of course it was only temporary. She hugged the sword and turned to leave. On the 6th floor a voice suddenly sounded. Is this little girl calculating whether she can beat me or not? On the 3rd day, Zhou Xian lay on the ground. At this moment his whole body was drenched in sweat. Not only that, but there were also dozens of bloody wounds on his body. At this moment Lil Linger came up to him with 2 bright red fruits in her arms. Lil Linger handed the fruits to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian did not stand on ceremony. He picked them up and ate them. As soon as the fruits entered his stomach, a wave of pure spirit aura immediately spread out from his body. Very quickly, the injuries on his body actually healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhou Xian was shocked. He looked at the fruits in his hand and asked in astonishment, What fruit is this? Xiaolinger blinked. A little red fruit. Zhou Xian, Xiaolinger asked, is it delicious? Zhou Xian nodded. Yummy. Xiaolinger pointed to the 2nd floor and said excitedly, do you want some more? I have a lot. Zhou Xian's mouth twitched. The fruits in his hand were definitely more precious than immortal crystals because of their terrifying recovery ability. At this moment Xiaolinger suddenly approached Zhou Xian and whispered, when will the 6th floor leave? Zhou Xian's mouth twitched again. This little girl still had not given up on the idea. However, he was also a little curious. When would the 6th floor leave? Zhou Xian looked up. Senior, can you leave the tower? The 6th floor said, not at the moment. Zhou Xian was puzzled. Why? The 6th floor said, it is dangerous outside. It is safer to stay here. Zhou Xian's face darkened. Senior, are you joking? The 6th floor sighed. I am not joking. It is indeed dangerous outside. Don't worry, I won't stay here. When it is time to leave, I will. Zhou Xian hesitated. Senior, aren't you angry that you were locked up for so many years? The 6th floor smiled. You want to ask why I didn't do anything to you? Zhou Xian smiled sheepishly and nodded. The 6th floor said, firstly, the one who locked me up wasn't you but this tower. Even if I wanted to take revenge, I would take revenge on this tower. Taking revenge on you is a sign of incompetence. Zhou Xian asked again, Senior, don't you want this tower? The 6th floor smiled. This tower is a treasure. It would be a lie to say that I am not tempted. However, this tower is not something that I can have. This tower has great karma and I couldn't even withstand it when I was at my peak, let alone now. So, don't worry, I won't have any designs on your treasure. Zhou Xian shook his head and smiled. Senior, you are wise. I am truly impressed. He was sincerely impressed. An expert like this knew what to take and what not to take. Being able to pick up and let go, this was a wise decision. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't want to let go but that he couldn't. The World Prison Pagoda was already attached to him. The 6th floor said, actually, the karma of this tower isn't something you can handle. However, you are no ordinary person. There is someone strong backing you to block most of the karma. Otherwise, you would have reincarnated a long time ago. Zhou Xian smiled. No matter what, I hope we can get along well. The 6th floor said, that's exactly what I want. Even though we are not from the same era, your personality and temperament are to my liking. So, we should be able to get along well. Zhou Xian wanted to say something but he stopped. The 6th floor said, what are you trying to say? Zhou Xian asked, Senior, if I gather all 9 laws, can I really control this tower? The 6th floor said, no. Zhou Xian was puzzled. Why? The 6th floor said, strife. If you aren't strong enough, you will never be able to make it serve you wholeheartedly. If you gather all the laws, you will only be able to use some of the pagoda's functions and restrict us who are imprisoned here. Zhou Xian nodded. I understand. The 6th floor said, do you want to see the 7th floor? Zhou Xian was startled. I can see it? The 6th floor said, yes, I can feel that the seal on the 7th floor has loosened. I can use my divine ability to let you see the 7th floor. At this moment Xiaolinger suddenly said, look. Zhou Xian looked at Xiaolinger. Xiaolinger blinked. There's a treasure. Zhou Xian asked with a smile, what treasure? Xiaolinger shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian looked up at the sixth floor. Then I'll have to trouble Senior. The sixth floor said softly, it's nothing. I also want to know what kind of trash the seventh floor is. How can he be above me? This demon. I can't accept this. Yi Xian. Chapter 557. Unacceptable. Yi Xian was amused. Regardless of whether it was the fifth or sixth floor, they actually cared about why they were one floor lower than the others. But then again it made sense. Regardless of whether it was the fifth or sixth floor, they were all peerless powerhouses. They must have once shocked an entire era. The seventh floor. Yi Xian was curious. Xiaolinger said there were treasures inside. What kind of treasures could there be? This little guy was so mysterious. At this time the sixth floor said, you are the pagoda master, so the pagoda will not hurt you. However, your strength is too low, so you need my help. Later, use your divine sense to force your way into the sixth floor. Yi Xian nodded. Okay. The sixth floor said, calm your qi and focus. Yi Xian slowly calmed down. Soon his heart was at peace. At this time a powerful force suddenly surged into his body. Yi Xian opened his eyes. In his eyes, sword rays flashed like lightning. Xiaolinger was startled and took a few steps back. He was panicking. At this time the sixth floor said, enter the seventh floor. Yi Xian ignored the terrifying force in his body. His divine sense went straight to the seventh and sixth floor. However, at the entrance of the seventh floor, a mysterious force blocked his way. Yi Xian quickly asked, Senior, what should we do? The sixth floor said, what else can we do? Force your way in. Yi Xian gathered all of his divine consciousness and blasted it towards that force. Rumble. In an instant Yi Xian felt like his head was hit by a hammer and he almost fainted. But luckily there was a force that kept stimulating him, preventing him from fainting. At this time the sixth floor's voice suddenly sounded, hurry up, the seventh floor's restriction will automatically repair itself. You don't have much time. Yi Xian quickly calmed himself down and looked up. At this time he was already on the seventh floor. There was only a table on the seventh floor. On the table there was a box. On the box there was a candied fruit wrapped in spiritual energy. Beside the box there was an ancient book. Other than that there was nothing else. What the hell? A box. An ancient book. Yi Xian was a little confused. This was the thing that was locked on the seventh floor? At this time the person on the sixth floor suddenly said, look at that ancient book. Yi Xian's gaze landed on the ancient book. At this time a line of words suddenly appeared above the book. Unparalleled martial art. Infinite sword. Boundless sword? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He moved closer and continued reading. Using the sword as a thought, using the thought as a sword. Wherever the thought is, the sword is. With a single thought I can launch a sneak attack and backstab an enemy within a 300 m radius. I can disregard any defense, any armor, any laws, any secret techniques, any divine abilities, any Tao laws, any restrictions of the heavens and earth and any realm. Seeing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. An unparalleled martial art? Ignore everything? What the hell was this? Yi Xian suppressed the excitement in his heart and continued reading because there was more. After killing the enemy, you can immediately enter the state of emptiness. You are not restricted by the heavens and earth. No laws, no secret techniques, no Tao laws, no cause, no effect. When he read this, a powerful force suddenly appeared in the seventh floor. Boom. Yi Xian's divine sense was directly driven out of the seventh floor. In the first floor, Yi Xian felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow and retreated a few meters. At this moment his head was extremely heavy like lead. At this time Xiaolinger carried 2 fruits to Yi Xian. Yi Xian quickly ate them. Soon the heavy feeling in his head gradually disappeared. However, his heart was like a raging sea. He could not calm down for a long time. An unparalleled martial art. Judging from the introduction, that infinite sword was really too heaven-defying. Yi Xian sat on the ground and asked in a deep voice, Senior, is that unparalleled martial art exaggerated? After a moment of silence, the person on the 6th floor said, No. Yi Xian was shocked. How is that possible? The person on the 6th floor said softly, Now, I truly believe that this tower is from the 5th dimension. Yi Xian was confused. Senior, what do you mean? The person on the 6th floor said, Although rumors say that this tower is from the fifth dimension, there is no direct evidence. But now there is. This unparalleled martial art exists not only in your era but also in my era. Do you know why this martial art is so heaven-defying? Yi Xian shook his head. Senior, please enlighten me. The person on the sixth floor said, because it is not a fourth dimension martial art, but a fifth dimension martial art. Fifth dimension. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. This unparalleled martial art is from the fifth dimension? The person on the sixth floor said, of course. Otherwise, how could it be so heaven-defying? The reason why it can ignore everything is because it is higher than the laws and Tao laws of the fourth dimension, and it is not restricted by the fourth dimension. Moreover, this martial art should be one of the best in the fifth dimension. Otherwise, it would not be locked in here. Yi Xian was confused. Why would a martial art be locked in a tower? The person on the sixth floor said, maybe because it is too heaven-defying, or maybe it is something else. Whatever the reason, it is enough to prove that it is very terrifying. If you learn this martial art now, I think you can kill that transcendent sword saint from the sword sect in a second. Kill transcendent sword saint in a second. Yi Xian was startled, then he smiled bitterly. Is it really that heaven-defying? The person on the sixth floor said, if it is not heaven-defying, why would it be locked in the seventh floor? Yi Xian was about to speak, but Xiaolinger pulled his sleeve. Yi Xian looked at Xiaolinger, and Xiaolinger pointed upstairs. Full of anticipation, what is inside? Yi Xian smiled. A box and a stick of candied hawthorn. Candied hawthorn. A box. Xiaolinger blinked, then clapped her hands and said excitedly, mine, that is mine. Yi Xian. Xiaolinger seemed to think of something. She looked up at Yi Xian and said happily, that is mine, she left it for me, hee. Yi Xian smiled. Okay, it is yours. Xiaolinger hurriedly said, I want to go in. Yi Xian shook his head. You can't go in for now. Xiaolinger asked, why? Yi Xian smiled. Anyway, we can't go in for now. Let's wait for a while, okay? Xiaolinger blinked. Okay. After saying that, she turned and ran away. At this time, the sixth person suddenly said, this little one's way of thinking is very dangerous. You better be careful, or else she might cause a big mess for you one day. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He also knew that Xiaolinger was a dangerous person. To say that she was naive, she had a lot of evil ideas, but to say that she was not naive, she did not understand a lot of things, she just thought it was fun. In any case, he had to be careful. Yi Xian seemed to think of something and immediately asked, Senior, is this unparalleled martial art stronger than my life and death sword? The sixth person said, you can't compare it like that. Your sword skill is more of a belief in the way of the sword. Its power depends on your understanding of the way of the sword. Can be said that this is a growth-type sword skill. As for this unparalleled martial art, it belongs to the fifth dimension. If you really want to compare, only the original owners of the two sword skills can fight it out. Only then will you know which is stronger. Yi Xian smiled. Then there is no other way. The woman in the plain dress? At the thought of this, he suddenly missed her a little. The woman who could be said to be the one who changed Yi Xian's fate. He wondered where she was now. After a while, Yi Xian shook his head, collected his thoughts and continued to cultivate. Sparring with the wooden man had greatly improved him, especially in terms of close combat. It could be said that he had undergone a qualitative transformation from before. Of course, he did not forget about his own life and death sword. One should know that his flying sword was now his most lethal trump card. And the divine blood technique. All of these could be combined with his life and death sword. Using blood to condense the sword. This divine blood technique was also one of his trump cards. He could use the opponent's blood to condense the sword, and then control the flying sword to defeat the enemy. In fact, this move was a group attack sword skill. The more enemies, the better, because the more blood, the more powerful this divine blood technique would be. And the Moku power could still be used. As for the God King sword, it was also one of his strongest trump cards. The enhancement of the dragon soul and dragon power was not just a little bit. Overall, his current strength was still somewhat dependent on external objects, and if he removed the soul-subduing sword and the God King sword, his strength would be reduced to a certain extent. And now what he was training was his basic skills. He could use external objects, but he had to recognize himself. On this day, Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly looked up. The next moment he left the prison pagoda and returned to his room. And at this moment outside the room a voice suddenly sounded, "Young Master Yi, our city lord invites you in." City lord? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He had been discovered? Yi Xian opened the door and outside was an old man. The old man glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi as well?" Yi Xian asked, "Your city lord?" The old man nodded slightly. After learning that young Master Yi had arrived, the city lord sent this old man to invite young Master Yi to the city lord's mansion. Yi Xian said with a smile, "What for?" The old man shook his head. "This old man doesn't know. Young Master Yi will know when you get there." Yi Xian asked, "What if I don't go?" The old man said, "This is up to young master. However, the city lord said that many people in the city are looking for young Master Yi, including a woman from the Tang clan." Tang clan's young miss. Yi Xian was silent. This woman still came in the end. After a moment Yi Xian said, "Let's go." The old man nodded slightly. "Young Master Yi, please." Yi Xian walked out. Soon, under the old man's lead, he arrived at the city lord's mansion. In a large hall, the old man brought Yi Xian into the hall and quietly retreated. Not long after, a man walked in. The man's face was pale and he looked extremely weak. The man walked in front of Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I am the city lord of Order City, Lu Shibai." Yi Xian nodded. "City Lord Lu, why did you ask me to come here?" Lu Shibai smiled and then he looked to the side. There a woman walked out. She wore a black dress and she had an extremely beautiful appearance. This woman was the Tang clan's young miss. Tang clan's young miss looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I trust you've been well since we last met." Yi Xian smiled. "I haven't seen you for a few days and Miss Tang has become even more beautiful. I wonder if Miss Tang is betrothed to someone." "Oh, I don't mean anything by it. I'm just asking really." Tang clan's young miss looked straight at Yi Xian and she suddenly smiled. "If young Master Yi is willing to give me that treasure as a betrothal gift, what harm is there in me marrying young Master Yi?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he said, "How about this? We'll have a son first and after that we'll give the treasure to our son. What do you think?" Tang clan's young miss stared at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Chapter 558. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly became slightly strange. At the side, Lu Shibai suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Yi, it's not a simple matter for you to become the son-in-law of the Tang clan." Yi Xian smiled. "It's fine. I'm willing to work hard." Lu Shibai shook his head. "Let's get back to business." Yi Xian looked at Lu Shibai and smiled. "Governor Lu, what role are you playing now?" Lu Shibai smiled. "Brother Yi, don't worry. I'm not greedy for the treasure. I was just dragged by Lady Tang to invite Brother Yi here for a talk." Yi Xian nodded. "Let's talk then. I'm a very reasonable person." Lu Shibai smiled. "Take your time. I'll keep a lookout for you." Then he stood up and left. After Lu Shibai left, Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. "What do I have to do for you to hand over the treasure?" She didn't use force because she couldn't do it in the City of Order. This wasn't the Tang clan or Shenwu City. If she used force, the Order Alliance would definitely intervene. When the Tang clan and the Order Alliance fought, Yi Xian would reap the benefits again. Yi Xian smiled. "Lady Tang, I want to ask you something. Does the Tang clan know what the treasure is?" Lady Tang said, "If we don't know what the Dao Yi is, why would we pay such a huge price to get it?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'm all ears." Lady Tang was silent for a moment. "It's from the fifth dimension." Yi Xian asked, "What else?" Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. "Isn't that enough?" Yi Xian was stunned. Then he shook his head. "You guys really scared me. Fifth dimension item. Clearly, these people's understanding of the world prison pagoda was that it came from the fifth dimension. Other than that, they didn't know anything else." Lady Tang suddenly said, "Young Master Yi obviously knows more than me. Why don't you tell me?" "How should I address Lady Tang?" Yi Xian asked. "It's really rude to keep calling you that." Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. "Tang Qing." "Tang Qing." Yi Xian said seriously, "It's a good name. The word, Qing, is extraordinary. There's a saying in ancient times, the blue sky, the white clouds, the moon on earth, shining alone on the mountains and rivers for 10,000 suns. This blue character." Tang Qing suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, are you really a swordsman?" Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. Of course. Tang Qing shook his head. Why do I feel like you don't look like a swordsman at all? On the contrary, I think you're more like a lowly cultivator. Really lowly, I'm not joking. Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Then she said, Young Master Yi, please introduce me to that treasure. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. Why don't you go in and take a look yourself, Miss Tang? Go in myself. Tang Qing narrowed her eyes. At this moment the hall suddenly became very quiet. A moment later Tang Qing shook her head and smiled. Young Master Yi, aren't you afraid that I'll go in and take it away? Yi Xian said seriously, I'm not afraid because I believe in Miss Tang's character. Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian. I'm afraid because I'm afraid that I won't be able to come out after I go in. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Tang doesn't believe in my character? Tang Qing nodded. I really don't. Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing said seriously, Young Master Yi, you're a smart person. I don't want to beat around the bush with you. My Tang clan will not give up on the treasure you have. Not only my Tang clan, but there are also many unknown forces who are eyeing it. Young Master Yi, leaving this treasure on you is a scourge to you. Do you know that? Yi Xian nodded. I know. Tang Qing stared at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi is not a stupid person. You've been keeping this treasure for so long. It's not because you're greedy but for some other reason. Yi Xian smiled. An illusory Xiaota suddenly appeared between his eyebrows. Seeing this illusory Xiaota, Tang Qing's eyes narrowed. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Tang, this is the treasure you want. Tang Qing looked at the Xiaota. She slowly clenched her right hand but then loosened it. What do you mean, Young Master Yi? Yi Xian said seriously. Miss Tang, I can tell you that if this treasure falls into your hands, it will bring disaster to your Tang clan. Do you believe me? Tang Qing shook her head. You know nothing about my Tang clan's strength. Yi Xian smiled. You know nothing about this pagoda's abilities and dangers. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian put away the prison pagoda and said, Miss Tang, do you know what happened in the never-ending starfield that day? Tang Qing said, I know Dao Yi a little. Yi Xian smiled. Then do you know why the Astral Lord did not dare to go to the never-ending starfield that day? Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said, Miss Tang, anyone who wants this pagoda will not have a good ending. To be honest, I might not have a good ending in the future. But now it's not that I don't want to give it to you. I can't give it to you. Tang Qing frowned. Why? Yi Xian smiled and did not speak. Tang Qing's expression changed. It has already recognized you as its master. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Tang Qing said in a low voice, If I want this treasure, I must kill you first. Yi Xian said, Yes. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Why are you telling me so much? Yi Xian smiled. I want to make you give up on the idea of taking the treasure. Tang Qing shook her head. Impossible. Even if I give up, my Tang clan will send someone else. Besides, Young Master Yi, even if I believe you, my Tang clan will not allow this pagoda to fall into the hands of other factions, such as the Order Alliance or the demons. Yi Xian smiled. What do you plan to do next, Miss Tang? Tang Qing smiled. Prepare to watch the show. Yi Xian frowned. At this time Tang Qing said, Young Master Yi, as you said, the treasure you have isn't simple. Of course you aren't simple either. As such, I have issued a bounty for you in my name. Anyone who can kill you will be rewarded with 3 divine artifacts and 5 million divine crystals. Not only that, I have also revealed your whereabouts. Right now, there should be a lot of people gathered outside the city lord's mansion. Yi Xian was silent. Tang Qing continued, Young Master Yi, don't think about making a move against me. If you kill me, the people sent by the Tang clan might not use such a gentle method. Moreover, Young Master Yi, you can't kill me. If I were you, I would immediately escape because the Order Alliance's experts should be on their way. Not only them, but the demon's experts might also arrive soon. Yi Xian stood up and gave Tang Qing a thumbs up. Good plan, Miss Tang. Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian and smiled. Compared to Young Master Yi, I'm still far inferior. You played with my Tang clan and the sword sect in the palm of your hand. Your intelligence isn't ordinary. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished. Tang Qing smiled coldly and her body suddenly turned illusory. Not only her but the space around her also turned illusory. Obviously she wanted to teleport away through this space. She didn't want to fight Yi Xian right now because it was meaningless. Since Yi Xian and the treasure weren't simple, then she would let Yi Xian fight with others. The Tang clan would watch the show from behind and wait for an opportunity to act. Right at this moment, Tang Qing's expression suddenly changed. Because the space around her suddenly returned to normal. Tang Qing was just about to attack, but a sword was already pressed against her forehead. Tang Qing stared fixedly at Yi Xian. How did you do that? Yi Xian didn't waste his breath at all. He just grabbed Tang Qing's shoulder and tossed her into the pagoda. Within the pagoda, Tang Qing looked around vigilantly. She knew that this was probably the treasure. A space of its own. Meanwhile, a young girl appeared in front of Tang Qing and it was Xiao Ling. Xiao Ling was stunned when she saw Tang Qing, and then she turned around and ran. She vanished in the blink of an eye. But it didn't take long for her to appear in front of Tang Qing again. But this time there was a sword in her hand. Xiao Ling was vigilant as she gazed at Tang Qing. Tang Qing's eyes narrowed slightly. She was just about to attack when a mysterious force suddenly enveloped her. The first level of the Dao Law. As soon as this force appeared, Tang Qing noticed that she was actually unable to move at all. At this moment, Tang Qing's expression finally changed. Or it should be said that she was slightly panicked. Only now did she realize that she didn't seem to be able to resist. Tang Qing gradually calmed down. In front of her, Liu Ling looked at her warily, outside the pagoda. As soon as Tang Qing vanished, Lu Shibai suddenly walked in. He looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Where's Miss Tang?" Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Tang asked me not to tell her." Lu Shibai's eyes narrowed slightly. "Young Master Yi, it's best that you tell her." Yi Xian walked over to Lu Shibai and smiled. "City Governor Lu, this is a secret between me and Miss Lu." Lu Shibai looked Yi Xian in the eye. "What if I insist on young Master Yi telling me?" The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. "Who do you think you are?" As soon as he finished speaking, a flying sword suddenly slashed towards the right. In the blink of an eye, a bloody head fell from the space on the right. At this moment, Lu Shibai had already retreated outside the hall. In his eyes there was a trace of fear. As Yi Xian walked out of the hall, Lu Shibai suddenly said, "Do you know what you're doing?" Yi Xian smiled. "It's none of your business." As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared outside the city governor's mansion. Beside Lu Shibai, an old man suddenly appeared. "Young master, do you want to keep him here?" Lu Shibai shook his head. "No. Even if we keep him here, it's meaningless. Killing him would only make things worse. Moreover, we can't kill him." The old man said in a deep voice, "Could it be that this person did something to that Miss Tang?" Lu Shibai shook his head. "Go inform the Tang clan experts outside the city. As for the rest, let them handle it themselves." The old man nodded slightly and turned to leave. Yi Xian did not leave in stealth because he had to cause trouble. The bigger the trouble he caused, the safer Yi Ling and the others in Divine Martial City would be. He had to attract the hatred. Yi Xian swaggered out of the city governor's mansion. At the entrance he glanced around. There were many powerful auras in the dark. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. "I am Yi Xian. I am right here. Come, please do me." Chapter 559. At the entrance of the city governor's mansion, Yi Xian's thunderous laughter reverberated through the sky. At this moment, almost the entire Order City heard his voice. In the city governor's mansion, Lu Shibai looked at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. This Yi Xian was either overconfident in himself or a lunatic. At this moment, an angry roar resounded from outside the city governor's mansion. "Little brat, don't be so arrogant. Grandpa will deal with you." As the voice resounded, a man suddenly appeared above Yi Xian's head. He was about to attack when a sword light suddenly shot up from the ground in an arc pist. In the air, the man's head flew off and blood splattered. The head fell to the ground and landed right beside Yi Xian's feet. Yi Xian kicked the head away and raised his head to look at the sky. He laughed loudly. "Too weak. Show me something stronger." The surroundings quietened down and no one attacked again. No one dared. Because the expert that Yi Xian killed in an instant was a sage. And a Saint Realm powerhouse had been killed in seconds just like that. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly walked towards the outside of the city. Along the way no one stopped him. However, there were some powerful auras around him. In next to no time Yi Xian arrived at the city gate. At this moment there were 39 people standing outside the city gate. The person in the lead was the Tang clan's Yuelao, and behind him were all the Tang clan's armored cavalry. If the Order Alliance did not interfere, this lineup was enough to trample the entire Order city. Yuelao stared at Yi Xian. "What did you do to eldest Miss?" Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Tang and I have already pledged to marry each other. Wow, from now on we are a family." Yuelao was furious. "Bullsh *tu." At this moment Tang Qing suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. At this moment, Tang Qing's cultivation base had been sealed. This was not done by the prison pagoda but by the 6th floor. In the prison pagoda could seal Tang Qing, but after coming out the prison pagoda couldn't. However, as long as they entered the pagoda the 6th floor could make a move. However, outside the pagoda the 6th floor couldn't make a move. According to his words, he didn't want to attract the attention of the Tendo of the 4th dimension. No matter what, whoever entered the pagoda would be out of luck. Yi Xian walked to Tang Qing's side, his left hand wrapped around Tang Qing's waist. He said with a smile, "Yuelao, go back and tell my future father-in-law that Qing'er and I are truly in love. Tell him not to break us up. I don't want others to laugh at me." Yuelao flew into a rage. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Qing'er is already pregnant. Tell my future father-in-law that once the child is born, we will go back to see him. And that treasure will be my Yi Xian's betrothal gift." Elder Yuelao was trembling in anger. He still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian had already disappeared with Tang Qing. Just as Yuelao was about to chase, Tang Qing's voice suddenly rang out in his mind, "Don't chase." Yuelao stopped. The expression on his face was extremely unsightly. In the darkness many experts were dumbfounded. This Yi Xian was Tang clan's son-in-law? And that treasure was already given to Tang clan as a betrothal gift? What was going on? Some people believed it, some didn't. No matter what, the situation had become even more complicated. Some experts who wanted to fight Yi Xian had already started to hesitate. Some even temporarily gave up on fighting Yi Xian. They were prepared to wait and see. Of course, there were some people who felt that something was wrong, but they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Inside the city lord's mansion, the old man beside Lu Shibai said in a deep voice, "This Tang Qing is being controlled." Lu Shibai nodded. "This Yi Xian isn't simple." The old man was about to speak, but at this moment, Lu Shibai suddenly looked towards the sky. "The Order Alliance's people are here. Unfortunately, they are a bit late." Just as he finished speaking, several experts suddenly appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion. Outside Order City, in a mountain range thousands of miles away, Yi Xian found a waterfall. He sat beside the pool. Not far from him was Tang Qing. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. "You want to shift the attention of the world to my Tang clan?" Yi Xian nodded. Tang Qing said indifferently, "Some brainless people believe you, but do you think those with brains will believe you?" Yi Xian smiled. "It's enough that your people don't find trouble with me for the time being. Or rather, it's enough that they find trouble with me. And everyone else." Tang Qing squinted his eyes. "You are attracting hatred, hoping that everyone's attention will be focused on you. This way, no one will care about your sister in Divine Martial City." Yi Xian smiled, not saying anything. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. She walked to Yi Xian's side, sat down and placed her feet in the river, gently floating with the water. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. He didn't care about Tang Qing. The current her couldn't escape. The restriction on the 6th floor, unless it was an expert above Dao realm, couldn't be broken. Even those above Dao realm might not be able to break it. Tang Qing suddenly asked, "Who placed the restriction on me?" Yi Xian smiled. "A senior." Tang Qing squinted his eyes. "The rumored person behind you?" Yi Xian shook his head. "No, a senior who was originally in this pagoda." Tang Qing frowned. "Your pagoda, there are people imprisoned?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Tang Qing said in a deep voice, "How strong are they?" Yi Xian smiled. "If they come out, it shouldn't be a problem to destroy your Tang clan." Tang Qing shook her head. "You don't know anything about my Tang clan." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then asked in his heart, "Senior, with your strength, can you destroy this Tang clan?" "Let me clarify, this Tang clan should be extremely strong." The sixth person was silent for a moment and then he said, "Am I very weak in your heart?" Yi Xian was stunned and then he shook his head, "Of course not." The sixth person said, "Then why are you asking me this question? You just need to understand one thing, I'm imprisoned on the 6th floor, and the experts of the Tang clan are still roaming around outside." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, there are still geniuses out there." The sixth person said, "Of course, but the true experts won't appear in this universe." Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The sixth person said, "Because if you go out of this universe you will be rejected by the Tendo." Do you know what a Tendo is? Tendo? Yi Xian shook his head, "I don't really know." The sixth person said, "The spirit of this universe." Yi Xian asked, "Is it strong?" The sixth person said, "Not strong, you can go defy the heavens in the future." Yi Xian's face darkened like hell. "I'll believe you." At this moment Tang Qing suddenly said, "That senior is definitely strong, but do you really think he can go against my Tang clan? If he can, why is he holed up in the pagoda?" Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. "Miss Tang, don't test me. Because even if I told you his true strength, you wouldn't believe me." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. "Tell me, I'll believe you." Yi Xian smiled. "That senior is imprisoned in a treasure of the 5th dimension, Miss Tang Qing. Do you think he's simple?" Tang Qing fell silent. Yi Xian shook his head and didn't say anything else. He sat cross-legged on the ground and then led Tang Qing into the pagoda. Cultivation. Whenever he had time he would cultivate like a madman, and during this time his close combat skills had greatly improved. Yi Xian was cultivating, the Emperor Hound was still sleeping, and Xiaoling was still working on her spirit fruits. Tang Qing looked at the entire pagoda and fell into deep thought. In the beginning, before coming into contact with the pagoda, she also felt that it was only a treasure and couldn't possibly harm the Tang clan. But now she gradually changed her mind. The feeling this pagoda gave her was terror. Extremely terrifying. Intuition told her that the Tang clan couldn't control this pagoda. And for the Tang clan to give up, that was impossible. Tang Qing pondered for a long time, and then she came to the 2nd floor where Xiaoling was working on her spirit fruits. Seeing Tang Qing, her expression instantly became alert. Towards humans apart from Yi Xian, she was wary of everyone else. Tang Qing smiled. "You're planting spirit fruits?" Xiaoling nodded. "Yes." Tang Qing smiled. "Why are you following a human?" Clearly, she had already recognized Xiaoling's identity. Xiaoling blinked and then said, "He's a good person, he won't hurt me." Tang Qing asked, "How do you know he's not using you?" Xiaoling looked at Tang Qing. "Are you trying to sow discord between me? Let me tell you, I won't fall for your trick unless you chase the 6th floor away from me." Tang Qing narrowed her eyes. "Is he very powerful?" Xiaoling nodded and said seriously, "Very powerful." Tang Qing asked, "Has he always been here?" Xiaoling looked at Tang Qing. "Human, are you trying to trick me?" Tang Qing, Xiaoling looked at Tang Qing. "If you do me a favor, I'll be tricked by you." Tang Qing, Xiaoling pointed to the 6th floor. "The 6th floor? You help me chase away the guy on the 6th floor and I'll let you trick me, how about it?" Tang Qing shook his head and smiled. "I don't have that ability." Xiaoling spread her hands. "Then I won't be tricked by you." After saying that, she turned around and continued to play with her spirit fruits. Tang Qing was silent for a moment, then turned and left. Soon she arrived in front of the Emperor Hound, looked at it and frowned slightly. After a moment her expression suddenly changed. You're the legendary guardian beast of the Protoss?" The Emperor Hound opened its eyes and looked at Tang Qing. "You know me?" Seeing the Emperor Hound admit it, Tang Qing's expression became extremely solemn. "It's really you? You're also locked here?" The Emperor Hound asked, "How do you know me?" Tang Qing said solemnly, "My Tang clan has some records about the Protoss." The Emperor Hound's expression was indifferent, and after a moment, it shook its head slightly and went back to sleep. The glory of the Protoss, after all, had become history. At this time Tang Qing asked again, "Why are you here?" The Emperor Hound ignored Tang Qing, and Tang Qing didn't continue asking, returning to the 1st floor of the prison pagoda. Looking at Yi Xian, who was training with the wooden man, Tang Qing fell into deep thought. At this time Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed, and the next moment he directly left the prison pagoda. As soon as he left, the space in front of him split open, and a spear pierced through the air, stabbing straight at him. Chapter 560. When the spear came, Zhou Xian didn't dodge. He took a quick step forward and stabbed with his sword. That sword was as fast as lightning. That sword was as sharp as an awl. Bang! The spear and sword shook violently and the two figures retreated rapidly. Soon Zhou Xian stopped. Not far from him stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a tight-fitting robe. He stood ramrod straight and held a spear in his right hand. His eyes were as sharp as knives. The middle-aged man looked coldly at Zhou Xian. "Where's the young lady?" "An expert of the Tang clan." Zhou Xian smiled. "She's fine. Don't worry." The middle-aged man looked coldly at Zhou Xian. "Zhou Xian, I heard that you're a young talent. I didn't expect you to use a woman as a hostage. That's not what a man would do." Zhou Xian said indifferently, "I heard that the Tang clan is a great clan. I didn't expect you to send dozens of Dao realm experts to deal with a young man who's not even 20 years old. Is this what a man would do?" The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. "It seems that you won't hand over the young lady." Zhou Xian smiled. "I won't hand her over. I'll piss you off." The middle-aged man's eyes twitched. His eyes became colder. "Then go to hell." As he said that, he was about to attack. However, Zhou Xian turned around and ran. He was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dense forest. The middle-aged man's face changed. He stomped his right foot and dashed into the forest. However, when he entered the forest, Zhou Xian had disappeared. The middle-aged man gripped his spear tightly in his right hand. He was extremely vigilant. Before he came, he already knew about Zhou Xian. This person had the strength to kill Dao realm experts. No, he had the ability to kill Dao realm experts in seconds. He couldn't afford to be careless against Zhou Xian, especially when it came to Zhou Xian, who hid in the dark and assassinated him. The middle-aged man didn't continue to move forward. He started to retreat until he reached the edge of the forest. Then he used his divine sense to scan the forest in front of him. However, he didn't find anything and his expression became even more solemn. In the end, the middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before choosing to leave. Somewhere in the dense forest, Zhou Xian frowned slightly. This guy actually didn't want to come in? If the other party came in, he was 90% sure that he could kill him. Of course, he was confident in facing them head-on. However, he couldn't face them head-on because he didn't know how many of them were rushing over. The Tang clan would not challenge him to a duel. Other than the Tang clan, he also needed to be careful of the Order Alliance. Seeing that the middle-aged man refused to enter, Zhou Xian turned around and left. After the middle-aged man left, he returned to Order City. In a certain tea house in the city, a middle-aged man sat down. In front of him was an old man, Elder Yuelao. Yuelao looked at the middle-aged man. "Failed?" The middle-aged man nodded. Yuelao said solemnly, "Lin Mook, this person can't be underestimated." The middle-aged man called Lin Mook nodded. "I exchanged one move with him. This person's strength has surpassed the Dao realm. Rumor has it that he has many trump cards. If he uses them all, normal Dao realm experts won't be his match." Saying this, he looked at Yuelao. "Is the miss still alive?" Yuelao shook his head. "I don't know." "What is the family's attitude?" Lin Mook said solemnly, "You know that the miss has an engagement with the Qin clan. Once this matter spreads out, the Qin clan and our Tang clan will lose face." Saying this, he hesitated. Yuelao said softly, "Is there anything you can't tell me?" Lin Mook sighed. "The Qin clan is worried about their face." "I'm afraid they will." Yuelao's eyes narrowed. "They dare." Lin Mook shook his head. "Our Tang clan needs people now. The Qin clan can be considered our right hand. We have to care about their face." Yuelao said solemnly, "What is the family's attitude?" Lin Mook said, "Let me find her if..." Saying this, he didn't continue. Yuelao's face sank. At this moment, Lin Mook said, "The Qin clan might have already sent people out and their goal." Yuelao said coldly, "They wouldn't dare." Lin Mook shook his head. "We have to find the miss first. Otherwise, the family might have already acquiesced to the Qin clan." Yuelao suddenly raged. "That damned Zhou Xian, he is a hooligan." That night, in the vast mountain range, Zhou Xian leaned against a tree and sat down. In front of him was a bonfire. He had already used chaotic energy to cover the surrounding space. Opposite Yi Xian was Tang Qing. Yi Xian was roasting a wild chicken. It was golden and fragrant. Tang Qing suddenly asked, "Why don't you ask me how he found you?" Yi Xian said, "Apart from you there is no one else." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian, "Then you're just going to let it go like this?" Yi Xian smiled, "I don't care what method you use to inform your Tang clan's experts. I'll give you another chance. You have a second chance but not a third." Tang Qing lightly said, "Bringing me along will only make your situation more troublesome." Yi Xian shook his head, "With or without you my situation will become very troublesome." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, your wisdom is outstanding. If you are willing to give up that treasure Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Tang Qing, firstly, although this treasure doesn't belong to me, it is indeed mine for now. Don't you think it's a little too far-fetched for you to claim that it's for my own good by snatching something that belongs to me? Second, I've told you before, it's not that I don't want to give it up, but that it is one with me. If I want to give it up, it won't be willing." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian, "Then what do you plan to do? Become enemies with the entire world?" Yi Xian shook his head, "This isn't what I want. But if the entire world wants to become my enemy, then I have no choice. If I have to kill, then I have to kill. If I have to run, then I have to flee." Tang Qing's eyelids twitched. "Are you crazy? Can you kill my Tang clan? Can you kill the Order Alliance? Can you kill the Demon clan?" Yi Xian spread his hands. "Then what do you think I should do? Surrender? I beg you to let me off this time." Actually, it wasn't that he didn't want to give up the world prison pagoda. Rather, this pagoda had already followed him and was connected to his divine soul. If this pagoda didn't voluntarily remove its connection with him, then if anything happened to it he would be the first to die. Moreover, this was Yi Xian's item. Why would he hand it over? Moreover, if he handed it over, would they let him off? No. These people wouldn't let him off. The more he knelt, the faster he would die. Now that he had the pagoda, he had a trump card. At least if he couldn't win, he could perish together with them. Once he handed it over, he could only wait for death if he couldn't win. He wouldn't hand it over even if he died. Take a risk, take a gamble, everything is possible. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian flicked his finger and a chicken drumstick landed in front of Tang Qing. The latter didn't stand on ceremony and ate it. After Yi Xian finished eating, he leaned against the tree and asked in his heart, "Senior, how can I unlock the 7th level?" He couldn't wait to obtain the unparalleled martial art in the 7th level. Immeasurable sword. If he could obtain this unparalleled martial art, his ability to protect himself would be greatly enhanced. The 6th person said, "Dao Law. If you can find the 7th level Dao Law, you can enter." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "If I find the 9th level Dao Law, will I be able to enter?" The 6th person said, "In theory, yes." Yi Xian was struck dumb. Then he asked, "Why in theory?" The 6th person said, "Why do you want to open the 9th level? Are you courting death?" Yi Xian, the 6th person said, "Did you forget about the 5th person? Or is it because I'm too easy to talk to that you think that everyone in the pagoda is easy to talk to?" Yi Xian broke out in a cold sweat. Indeed. He almost forgot about that. Although the 6th person was easy to talk to, Jian Zizai and the 5th person weren't easy to talk to at the beginning. Especially the 5th person, he almost killed him. The 7th person said, "Walk the path you're walking on." The 6th floor continued, "Walk the path you're walking on." As he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Tang Qing. "Miss Tang, are there any differences in the Dao realm?" He realized that he had met some Dao realm experts, but among them there were weak and strong ones. He realized that he had met some Dao realm experts. But among these Dao realm experts, there were some who were weak and some who were really strong. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. "You don't know." Tang Qing said, "Dao realm is divided into 3 types. Beginning Dao, knowing Dao and proving Dao. Beginning Dao is to know the existence of Dao, and knowing Dao is to have a certain understanding of Dao. Proving Dao is to have a good understanding. The Genesis Dao is to know the existence of the Dao, and this first knowledge is to have a certain understanding of the Dao, and this Dao validation is to have more or less understood. Beginning Dao is to know the existence of Dao, and knowing Dao is to have a certain understanding of it. Proving Dao is to have a good understanding of it." Tang Qing said, "Those who came this time are all at the Genesis Dao realm. However, their strength isn't something that the Genesis Dao realm experts outside can compare to." Tang Qing said, Our Tang clan cavalry is divided into 3 types: proving Dao realm cavalry, beginning Dao realm cavalry, and above that. She looked at Yi Xian. 3 different levels of Tang clan cavalry. This woman was telling him how strong the Tang clan was. Yi Xian asked, "What level are Mu Fengchen and Wu Wen from the sword sect?" Tang Qing said, "Knowing Dao realm." Yi Xian asked, "What about Yu Wuchen?" Tang Qing said, "He's still knowing Dao realm." Yi Xian frowned, "But his strength far surpasses Wu Wen and Mu Fengchen." Tang Qing said, "Because he has another identity, the Extraordinary Sword Saint. The Extraordinary Sword Saint is equivalent to the Dao Validation Realm. If he attains the Dao Validation Realm and is an Extraordinary Sword Saint, then he can even easily surmount realms to kill experts above the Dao Validation Realm." "An Extraordinary Sword Saint," Yi Xian said solemnly. "Miss Tang, what level do you think he is in the Sword Dao?" He was a great sword immortal before this, but he didn't know what level he was at now. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. "Cheap sword saint. Extraordinary cheap sword saint." Yi Xian was taken aback, and then he said, "Am I considered a transcendent sword saint?" Tang Qing nodded, "Yes. Even Yu Wuchen isn't a match for you at the same level." Yi Xian was speechless. "P.S. Also, I want tickets." Chapter 561. Yi Xian's face darkened. How could he not hear Tang Qing's sarcasm? Yi Xian didn't want to argue with her. He leaned against the tree and asked, "Miss Tang, why did the sword sect and Wuyuan decline to this extent?" In the observed world, the sword sect and Wuyuan were as famous as the Order Alliance and the Tang clan. But now, the strength of the sword sect and the martial institution wasn't just a little bit inferior to the Tang clan. Tang Qing shook her head. "That's because you don't know when they were at their peak. When the sword sect was at its peak, who dared to disrespect them? At that time, there were more than 30 transcendent sword saints in their sect. Back then, there was an incident where the sacred son of the demon race killed a disciple of the sword sect. After that, 16 transcendent sword sages charged into the demon race's hinterlands, forcing the demon race to execute that sword sect disciple." Yi Xian frowned. "The demon race didn't dare to fight?" Tang Qing said calmly, "How? You don't know how terrifying 30 transcendent sword saints were. When they joined forces, they could destroy the world. Moreover, the sect master of the sword sect was unfathomable. In addition, they were on the same side as Wuyuan. How could they fight? I'm afraid they couldn't kill the demon race." Yi Xian nodded slightly and asked, "What about Wuyuan?" Tang Qing said in a deep voice, "When Wuyuan was at its peak, a super genius appeared in Wuyuan. His name was Zhou Yafu. When this person was around, Wuyuan was at its peak. This person was invincible. He looked for people to fight every day. First, he fought with the demon king of the demon race. Then he fought with the Tang clan master. Finally, he fought with the Order Alliance's Star Lord." Speaking up to this point, she paused and said, "He even won." Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing said, "At that time he alone was enough to block a magnificent army, and that time could also be said to be the peak period of the martial arts institution." Yi Xian asked, "Is Zhou Yafu still coding?" Tang Qing said softly, "I don't know. I only know that he went to the Eastern Wasteland domain in the end. He probably went to the Divine Kingdom. As for whether he was beaten to death or went somewhere else, I don't know." Yi Xian frowned. "Is a Divine Kingdom very powerful?" Tang Qing was silent. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Tang Qing suddenly said, "Back then he almost unified the myriad worlds. Do you think he's amazing?" Yi Xian said, "I know about this. I think it was stopped by that Star-Lord back then." Tang Qing said softly, "I'm afraid only the Divine Kingdom and the Star-Lord know what happened at that time." At this point she wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian asked, "What's wrong?" Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. "Fine, I'm afraid I won't be able to live for long anyway, so there's nothing I can't say. As long as you are talented, no matter who you are, where you were born, or where you came from, we will value you. Of course, nothing is more important than the clan's interests. However, if your development is in line with the clan's interests, the clan will nurture you at all costs. Not only that, as long as you are strong and beneficial to the clan, even a woman can become the clan master. In the history of the Tang clan, there have been 9 female clan masters. Here we don't discriminate. Even if you are an illegitimate child, as long as you are capable, the position of crown prince will immediately be yours. That clan master left behind a message. Yi Xian asked, "What message?" Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. "If you are capable, you can do it." Yi Xian, "If you are capable, you can do it." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment he was still a little shocked. There was a reason why such a large clan was so powerful. At this moment he thought of the Qingqing Yi clan. Back then those elders of the Yi clan only cared about their own interests. In front of them the clan's interests were nothing. Just like that great elder. In order to let his grandson ascend the position, he could be said to be unscrupulous. Tang Qing didn't say anything else. She leaned against a tree and quietly ate the chicken drumstick in her hand. Not far away, Yi Xian also didn't say anything else. He took out a wooden figure. This wooden figure was Yi Ling. Yi Ling. Yi Xian gently stroked the wooden figure. He wondered how that lass was doing now. Not far away, Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and fell into deep thought. No matter what the outcome of Yi Xian's scheme was, she knew that it wouldn't end well for her. As a member of the Tang clan, she had a lot of resources but also a lot of helplessness. In short, the clan's interests were paramount. For the clan's interests, even the clan master could be sacrificed. What more her? A moment later, Tang Qing slowly closed her eyes. The surroundings were silent. Yuan. In a cave, Yi Ling sat cross-legged on a praying mat. The aura around her was getting stronger. Outside the cave was Wu Wen and all the Dao realm experts in Wuyan. After Xianxia broke through, it was now Yi Ling's turn. Moreover, Yi Ling was also trying to break through to the Dao realm. Once Yi Ling succeeded, Wu Yuan would have 2 young Dao realm experts. Because even Wan Li and Mo Xia already showed signs of breaking through to the Dao realm. Monsters. The 4 most monstrous people in Wuyan. Once all 4 of them successfully entered the Dao realm, it had to be said that the entire Wu Yuan was excited. Because Wuyan had been quiet for too long. In time, the martial arts institution would be able to return to its peak. Of course, they were nervous as well because they were afraid of being suppressed by the Order Alliance, Tang clan and the demon race. Now that Wu Yuan had lost its strongest trump card, if those people were to act against Wu Yuan, then Wu Yuan would be in an extremely dangerous situation. At the entrance to the cave, Qin Shan suddenly appeared by Wu Wen's side. "There's news of him." Wu Wen gazed at Qin Shan and the latter spoke in a low voice. "He kidnapped the eldest young miss of the Tang clan in Order City. The experts of the Tang clan are looking for him now. Moreover, according to what I know, the experts of Order City are looking for him as well." Wu Wen's expression eased up slightly when he heard this. Yi Xian keeping these powers busy was naturally great news for Wuyan. Moreover, the longer they could keep him busy, the better. Wu Wen fell silent for a moment before he asked, "How is he now?" Qin Shan shook his head. "His whereabouts are unknown. However, he might show himself again." When he spoke up to hear, he hesitated for a moment before he said, "If he doesn't show himself, then no one will be able to do anything to him." All of them were aware of Yi Xian's concealment technique, and if Yi Xian kept fleeing and concealing himself, then no one would be able to do anything to him. Wu Wen shook his head. "He won't." As he spoke, he gazed at the nearby cave. "If he does that, then those hostile powers will target Yi Ling. So he won't conceal himself." Qin Shan sighed softly. "He's actually quite loyal." Wu Wen nodded. "He really is. However, no matter if it's my Wu Yuan or the Sword Sect, we can't let him live." As he spoke, he raised his head and looked towards the horizon. "I hope he's blessed by the heavens." Qin Shan nodded lightly. "I hope so." Order City. Within the mountain range, Tang Qing, who was leaning on a tree, suddenly opened her eyes, and she looked at Yi Xian, who was nearby. "You might be in big trouble." Yi Xian furrowed his brows slightly. "What do you mean?" Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian. "Order Alliance has already invited Liang Dao sect, and your whereabouts will soon be known by them." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "My concealment technique is very powerful." Tang Qing shook her head. "As long as you haven't surpassed this Tendo, you won't be able to hide." Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, the voice from the 6th floor suddenly sounded. "Kid, someone is calculating you." Yi Xian was stunned. "What do you mean?" The 6th floor said, "Calculating. This person is quite skilled. I should remind you to run." "Run." Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Chapter 7. I have no other requests except for monthly votes and subscriptions. Today is double monthly votes. If I tip 1 monthly vote, I will get 2 monthly votes and so on. Monthly votes. All readers who come to Zongheng to subscribe and support me. A small subscription is the biggest support for me. Today, 5 readers will be selected to send physical books. These are the last 5 books and also the last draw. Thank you to all readers. Monthly votes, subscriptions, support. Please love me. Chapter 562. Run. As soon as the voice on the 6th floor faded away, Yi Xian got up and disappeared with Tang Qing. At the instant when Yi Xian and Yi Xian disappeared, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene. The old man wore a green robe, held a tortoise shell in his left hand, a string of copper coins in his right, and a pair of straw sandals on his feet. As soon as the old man landed on the ground, a black-robed old man appeared by his side. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. Heavenly Master Li, did they escape? Heavenly Master Li glanced at the surroundings and spoke softly. He knows we're coming. He's not simple. The black-robed old man nodded. According to our information, he really isn't simple. Heavenly Master Li's eyes narrowed. I suspect he's being guided by an expert. An expert. The black-robed old man frowned. An expert. Heavenly Master Li nodded. He's so young, so it's impossible for him to see through the old man's divination technique. There's only one explanation: someone saw through it and told him. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. Can Heavenly Master Li divine the other party? Heavenly Master Li pondered for a moment and then he said, let the old man give it a try. As soon as he finished speaking, his right palm trembled lightly, and the string of copper coins in his hand suddenly flew out. The copper coins fell to the ground in a messy mess. Heavenly Master Li looked at the copper coins on the ground, and then his right fingers started moving. Gradually, the copper coins in front of him started moving, and the space around him started trembling as if something was moving. A few thousand kilometers away, the voice of the 6th person suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind. Stop. Yi Xian immediately stopped. The 6th person said, someone's divining you. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. What should we do? The 6th person said, enter the pagoda. Yi Xian asked, so they can't divine me? The 6th person said, of course. If they could divine this lousy pagoda, would they still be living in this lousy place? Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly, and then he hurriedly entered the pagoda. The moment Yi Xian entered the world prison pagoda, Heavenly Master Li, who was thousands of miles away in the mountain range, suddenly frowned. The black-robed elder hurriedly asked, how is it? Heavenly Master Li looked into the distance and frowned. Strange. How strange. Fong Xian could still detect the trace of this person's aura, but at this moment, it suddenly disappeared as if he had evaporated. The black-robed old man said in a deep voice, why is it like this? Heavenly Master Li looked at the copper coins on the ground. At that moment all the copper coins had stopped. Heavenly Teacher Li said softly, there are only 2 possibilities. The first is that he's dead and his soul has been destroyed, completely disappearing. The second is that he used something to conceal himself and has already jumped out of this world. The black-robed old man said in a low voice, the second. Heavenly Master Li nodded. This person is not simple. As he spoke, he looked into the distance and said softly, of course, if he appears, I will know him at the first possible moment. The black-robed old man said, Heavenly Master Li, don't leave me during this period of time. Yi Xian is too strong and he's especially skilled in the art of assassination. Even a Dao realm expert would find it difficult to resist his assassination. Heavenly Master Li said with a smile, will he come to kill me? The black-robed old man was just about to speak when Heavenly Master Li's pupils suddenly constricted. He turned around, opened his palm, and a copper coin blocked the space between his brows. And at the space between his brows, a sword had appeared out of nowhere. However, this sword just happened to be blocked by the copper coin. The black-robed old man reacted extremely quickly and blasted his palm forward. Bang! Rumble! The space in front of the 2 of them trembled. At the same time, a figure retreated explosively. It was Yi Xian who retreated explosively. The black-robed old man was just about to attack again when Heavenly Master Li suddenly said, "This is an illusion." As soon as he said that, he opened his right palm and quickly wrote a word with his left hand. Then he gently pressed his right hand forward. Break. As soon as he said that, the space in front of the two of them suddenly became illusory, but it quickly returned to normal. At this moment Yi Xian was no longer there. Heavenly Master Li said softly, "This concealment technique is really amazing." The black-robed old man's expression was somewhat ugly. Just now, Yi Xian had actually attacked in front of him. He looked at Heavenly Master Li. "Heavenly Master, can you find his whereabouts?" Heavenly Master Li shook his head. "Not at the moment." The black-robed old man frowned slightly and was puzzled. "Why?" Heavenly Master Li said softly, "That sword strike of his just now wasn't really to kill me but to break my qi. There's an expert behind this person." As he said that, he suddenly became somewhat excited. "Alright, let's let the old man fight with him. Let's return to the city. I'm going to set up a formation." As soon as he said that, he turned and left. The black-robed old man also turned and left. Not long after the two of them left, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in the field. His expression was somewhat solemn. That Heavenly Master Li didn't seem like a weakling at all. As the sixth person said, the other party's divination technique did have some skill. Right now his greatest advantage was that he could hide in the dark. Once he lost this advantage, his situation would become very bad. At this moment the sixth person suddenly said, "Does he want to fight me?" Hearing that, Yi Xian was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "How could he be a match for you, senior?" The sixth person said, "Don't even think about fighting me. I won't fight and I can't fight." Yi Xian was speechless. The sixth person said, "This divination technique is a rather evil secret technique. Even in my era it was relatively rare. The most powerful thing about it is that it can borrow the earth eye, the heaven eye, and the eye of all things. That person, Fang Xiyuan, can already borrow the earth eye, and knows how to calculate with his fingers and the tortoise shell divination technique. Although your chaos was strong enough before, it couldn't cut off your fate and karma. This divination and calculation is using your fate and karma to find you." Yi Xian smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I still don't quite understand." The sixth person said, "It's normal. The art of divination is mysterious and ordinary people can't understand it." Yi Xian asked, "Senior, how should I deal with it?" The sixth person said, "That's your problem." Yi Xian was speechless. The sixth person said again, "I'm going to rest for a while. If I'm fast, I'll wake up in half a month. If I'm slow, I'll wake up in half a year. I hope you're still alive when I wake up. Take care." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Senior, I have another question." However, there was no response. Yi Xian's face darkened. This guy was sleeping at a time like this. What the hell? How was he going to deal with Heavenly Master Li? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and left. He didn't choose to continue running. Instead, he walked toward Order City. It wasn't his style to keep hiding. Soon Yi Xian returned to Order City. As soon as he arrived, he felt a powerful energy wave. Yi Xian followed the energy wave and soon arrived in front of an altar in the center of the city. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li was fiddling with something. Seeing Heavenly Master Li, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Clearly, he was setting up a formation to deal with him. In the dark, Yi Xian looked around. There was no one around except for the black-robed elder who followed Heavenly Master Li. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to believe that there was only one expert. Yi Xian quietly retreated. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li was holding a wooden sword and gesturing something. In front of him was a sand table. In the sand table, the sand suddenly began to tremble. Beside him, the black-robed elder crossed his arms and closed his eyes to rest. However, his divine sense was constantly covering the surroundings. Of course, he hoped that Yi Xian would appear. If Yi Xian appeared, he could save himself a lot of trouble. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li suddenly pointed the wooden sword in front of him. Here. As soon as he said that, his face instantly turned pale. And in the sand table, a figure quietly appeared. Not only that, but the surrounding environment was also displayed. Although it was a little blurry, it was getting clearer. The black-robed elder stared at the sand table. He knew that the sand table would soon show Yi Xian's position. Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, they could rush over in an instant. At that time, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. Soon Yi Xian's appearance and the surrounding environment on the sand table became clearer. The black-robed elder stared at the sand table. Heavenly Master Li's face became even paler. Not only that, but cold sweat also flowed down. And at this moment there was a sudden change. The appearance of Yi Xian that appeared on the sand table suddenly disappeared. Heavenly Master Li and the black-robed elder were directly stunned. But what shocked them even more was that the surrounding spiritual energy was all gone. Not only the surrounding area, but the entire orderly city's spiritual energy had actually disappeared completely. What's going on? The black-robed elder suddenly swept his gaze around, his face full of confusion. Heavenly Master Li also frowned, his face full of confusion. Without spiritual energy, his formation would naturally lose its effect. But the problem was, why was there no spiritual energy? Moreover, the entire orderly city's spiritual energy had disappeared. How was that possible? As the spiritual energy in the orderly city disappeared, the entire orderly city fell into a panic. The sudden disappearance of spiritual energy made many people uncomfortable. Because without spiritual energy, what could they do with the little bit of spiritual energy in their bodies? It was gone after releasing a martial arts technique. In front of the altar, Heavenly Master Li suddenly said in a deep voice, "It might be Yi Xian's doing." The black-robed elder looked at Heavenly Master Li and the latter said, "No, he definitely doesn't have the ability to do so. It must be the person behind him." As he spoke, he looked at the black-robed elder. "Has the Order Alliance found out about the background of the person behind him?" The Order Alliance shook their head. "Only the Star Lord knows about Dao Yi, but he didn't tell us." Heavenly Master Li frowned slightly and he thought to himself, Yi Xian is clearly not simple. If we continue to do this to Yi Xian, it's very likely that we'll lose both myself and the Liang Dao sect. Meanwhile, the black-robed elder suddenly said, "Don't worry, Heavenly Master Li. Our Order Alliance will deal with Yi Xian and the person behind him. Heavenly Master Li just needs to find his whereabouts." Heavenly Master Li shook his head. "There's no spiritual energy and setting up a formation requires a huge amount of spiritual energy." The black-robed elder said, "We'll provide divine crystals." Heavenly Master Li shook his head. "This person is too mysterious and he's not an ordinary person. I'll have to return to the sect and ask my master to see if our Liang Dao sect can deal with Yi Xian." The black-robed elder's face instantly darkened. "Fuck, you still want to see if you can deal with him?" Chapter 563. Heavenly Master Li's expression became more serious the more he thought about it. He had only come to return a favor to the Order Alliance. To him, finding someone was naturally a small matter. But from the looks of it wasn't that simple. He knew that Yi Xian had a treasure on him, but he didn't know much about Yi Xian. But now he realized that Yi Xian wasn't simple. He might have an expert behind him. If this continued, he might bring disaster to himself and the sect. He had to first see if this person could be dealt with. Thinking of this, Heavenly Master Li turned around and left. The black-robed elder didn't even stop him. Seeing Heavenly Master Li disappear into the horizon, the black-robed elder's expression was extremely ugly. He really left? The black-robed elder was a bit stunned. Moments later, the black-robed elder turned around and left. Without the Liang Dao sect, if Yi Xian didn't show himself, no one could do anything to him. There was only one way to make the Liang Dao sect continue to act, and that was to get the sect master to agree. Within the Order City, as the spiritual qi disappeared, the entire Order City fell into a state of panic. It should be said that the entire Order City was in chaos. Humans were greedy. Usually many people hid it well, but once there were no laws or moral restraints, they wouldn't even recognize themselves. But soon the entire Order City regained its calm. This was because those who took the opportunity to cause trouble were beheaded without any warning and their corpses were thrown onto the streets. In less than 2 hours, the streets of the Order City were piled with over 100 corpses. Among them, there were over a dozen Manifestation Realm experts. It was truly a bloodbath. In a certain tavern, Yuelao and Lin Mu sat opposite each other. Yuelao said solemnly, "I received news that Heavenly Master Li also failed." Lin Mu looked around. This city's spiritual qi suddenly disappeared. Was he the one who did it? Yuelao nodded, "Yes. This happened in the sword sect too. Lin Mu frowned. How did he do it? Yuelao shook his head. I don't know, Lin Mu said solemnly. The family has sent a message. Yuelao hurriedly asked, what does the family mean? Lin Mu said, the Qin family has asked the family to cancel the engagement. Yuelao flew into a rage. How dare they? Lin Mu shook his head. The Qin family's explanation is that the miss has fallen into the hands of that Zhou Xian. Even if she doesn't die, her innocence will be ruined. Thus they want to cancel the engagement. Yuelao said in a low voice. Clan head has already agreed. Lin Mu nodded. Also pass down the order that if the eldest miss has already perished, then avenge her at all costs. But if she hasn't perished. At this point he didn't continue. Yuelao stood up. I'll make a trip back to the clan. Lin Mu shook his head. It is already a foregone conclusion. Yuelao's expression immediately became extremely ugly. Wuyang Mountain. The Wuliang Mountain was located in the northern wasteland domain hundreds of thousands of miles away from the City of Order. The Wuliang Mountain was 9,900 meters tall. If one looked down, the entire mountain seemed to be standing in the endless starry sky, and one could reach out and pluck the stars. After returning to the immeasurable mountain, Heavenly Master Li went straight to the immeasurable hall. Inside the hall, Heavenly Master Li bowed slightly to the old man. Master. The old man wore a hemp robe and his beard was so long that it could touch the ground. This person was the current sect master of the Liang Dao sect, Mo Wuliang. Mo Wuliang said, You came for that Zhou Xian? Heavenly Master Li nodded. Yes. Disciple couldn't find this person's whereabouts even with the tortoise shell technique and the earth-finding array. I'm afraid there is an expert behind this person, so I came to ask Master if this Zhou Xian can be offended by my Liang Dao sect? Mo Wuliang shook his head. I won't interfere in this matter. Heavenly Master Li frowned. Master, who is behind this Zhou Xian? Mo Wuliang stood up and walked to the entrance of the hall. He looked up at the starry sky and said softly, No matter who it is, it's someone we can't afford to offend. Heavenly Master Li said in a low voice, So strong. Mo Wuliang said indifferently, If he isn't strong, then how can Zhou Xian live until now with the treasure? And that treasure, although it is the world's treasure, it is also the world's #1 disaster. Heavenly Master Li asked, My Liang Dao sect won't participate? Mo Wuliang was silent. Heavenly Master Li asked again, Master, are you hesitating? Mo Wuliang shook his head. Not at all. In terms of martial strength, my Liang Dao sect can't even compare to the sword sect, and the sword sect was almost exterminated because of this treasure. How would I dare to be greedy? What I'm worried about is that my Liang Dao sect doesn't want to participate, but someone is forcing us to participate. At this point he suddenly raised his head. These bastards are here. Just as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man and a black-robed old man appeared in front of him. Mo Wuliang looked at the middle-aged man and smiled. So it's Protector Qin Tian of the Order Alliance. Qin Tian smiled. Sect head Mo, please don't blame me for disturbing you. Mo Wuliang smiled. Not at all. Come invite me in. Soon a group of people entered the hall. In the hall Qin Tian smiled. Venerable Mo, I won't waste any more time. This time Sect head Mo already knows why I'm here, so I hope that Sect head Mo can help me. Mo Wuliang said solemnly, Protector Qin, this isn't a simple matter. Qin Tian smiled. If Sect head Mo has any difficulties, please feel free to speak. Mo Wuliang sighed. Protector Qin, you're a straightforward person. The old man won't beat around the bush with you. This divination is equivalent to peeking into the secrets of the heavens, and peeking into the secrets of the heavens comes with a price. If it was an ordinary person, it would naturally be a small matter to the old man. But this Zhou Xian isn't an ordinary person. Even the old man can't help but admire his concealment technique. And to find him you'll need to pay a huge price. Qin Tian smiled. Sect head Mo, please speak frankly. Mo Wuliang said. Firstly, the old man needs a large amount of god crystals to set up the array, at least 5 million. Secondly, the old man needs someone to help the old man withstand the heavenly tribulation. Any divination of karma and fate might result in a heavenly tribulation. If there is, the old man needs someone to help him withstand it. Thirdly, and most importantly, The old man needs the Order Alliance to send 3 knowing realm experts to protect my Liang Dao sect. Qin Tian went silent. Mo Wuliang asked again. Does sect head Qin feel troubled? Qin Tian shook his head. If the Order Alliance can do this, can you help us find his whereabouts? Mo Wuliang nodded. Yes. But there's only one chance. After the old man sets up the array, his vitality will be greatly damaged and he will need to rest for a long time. So if you know where Yi Xian is, you must capture him. Otherwise you'll have to wait for at least 2 months. Qin Tian thought for a moment. Sect head Mo only needs to find his whereabouts. We'll handle the rest. With that he looked at the black-robed old man. Fetch 5 million god crystals for sect head Mo. 5 million god crystals. Even though the black-robed old man was very unwilling, he still chose to get it. 5 million divinity gems was not a small number. After the black-robed old man turned and left, Qin Tian looked at Mo Wuliang. Sect head Mo, rumor has it that you know the secrets of the heavens. Do you think that Yi Xian is alive or dead? Mo Wuliang shook his head. Guardian Qin, don't joke with the old man. Know the secrets of the heavens? Guardian Qin, do you believe in such nonsense? Qin Tian smiled and didn't say anything. Know the secrets of the heavens? Only at his level did he truly understand what the so-called secrets of the heavens were. Who could know the future? At least in his opinion, no one. Could the ancient race powerhouses of the past be any weaker than the people of the present? If they knew the future, how could they have been exterminated? Of course, once one reached a certain level, it was true that they could sense some things in the dark. For example, danger. And the Liang Dao sect's divination was actually using this heaven and earth to find out where Yi Xian was. It wasn't knowing the future. Of course, this method couldn't be underestimated. At this moment, the black-robed old man who left earlier returned. The black-robed old man pointed and a storage ring landed in front of Mo Wuliang. Mo Wuliang glanced at it and kept the storage ring. Please wait outside for a moment. The old man is about to set up an array. When Yi Xian appears, I will inform the 2 of you. Qin Tian looked straight at Mo Wuliang. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Mo Wuliang said seriously, of course not. But let me say this first. If you can't catch him, then don't blame the old man, Qin Tian nodded. Of course. Then the 2 of us will wait for sect head Mo's good news. With that, the 2 of them turned and left. After the 2 of them left, Heavenly Master Li suddenly said, Master, didn't you say that you wouldn't get involved? Mo Wuliang said indifferently, if we don't get involved, do you think the Order Alliance will give up? Will they? Heavenly Master Li shook his head. Mo Wuliang said softly, we have no choice but to get involved. But we won't offend the Yi Xian. Heavenly Master Li looked at Mo Wuliang. Master, what do you mean? Mo Wuliang was silent for a moment. Then he pointed his finger and a black jade pendant landed in front of Heavenly Master Li. This is a teleportation stone. Can teleport you 1,000,000 miles in an instant. But you only have 2 chances. Give this to that Yi Xian. Heavenly Master Li said solemnly, if the Order Alliance finds out. Mo Wuliang shook his head. If you don't say it, I don't say it, and Yi Xian doesn't say it, no one will know. Heavenly Master Li was about to speak when Mo Wuliang suddenly said, he won't say it. Heavenly Master Li was puzzled. Why? Mo Wuliang smiled. Because he's not stupid. If he says it, will the Order Alliance kill the old man? They won't. On the contrary, we will completely stand on the Order Alliance's side. By then he will have nowhere to hide. With that, he looked into the distance. This little swordsman is very smart. Heavenly Master Li nodded. Where is he now? Mo Wuliang said indifferently, in my Liang Dao sect. Heavenly Master Li was stunned. Mo Wuliang said again, he just came in. He's not far behind you. Heavenly Master Li's expression changed. He turned around and saw a youth standing not far from him. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Mo Wuliang. Senior has good eyesight. Mo Wuliang smiled. Are you here to kill me? Yi Xian shook his head. No, I'm just here to take a look. Really, I don't have any other intentions. Mo Wuliang laughed and said, little friend, the energy on your body should be the chaos energy, right? Yi Xian's heart trembled. This old man isn't just your average level of power. Mo Wuliang said again, little friend, can you cooperate with the old man and put on a show to help my Liang Dao sect out of danger? Yi Xian looked at Mo Wuliang. Why are you helping me? Mo Wuliang chuckled. Everyone wants to snatch your treasure. The old man wants to do the opposite. Although you don't seem to have any hope of winning, what if you do? If that time really comes, the old man only has one request. I hope that little friend can let the old man take a look at that treasure. The old man has spent his entire life studying the dimensions of the universe. The old man really wants to know what kind of world the fifth dimension is. P.S. To those who didn't get a book, I'm very sorry. I really can't give it to everyone. However, I will hold similar events in the future. I won't be typing this morning. I'll be chatting with everyone, talking about life and the plot. If you have anything you want to say, praise me, scold me, have any suggestions, or have anything you want to say, leave a message. I'll definitely reply. If I leave my QQ, congratulations, you've won the prize. Lastly, I hope that everyone can subscribe to the official website. The society is under a lot of pressure right now. Without a subscription, my wife can't even think about it. The moment I think about it, 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 it's a car. I'm only 18. How could he bear such a huge pressure? Seeking monthly votes. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Chapter 564. The Fifth Dimension. Yi Xian finally understood. This old man wanted to understand the fifth dimension through the world prison pagoda. That's right, to understand the fifth dimension, there's nothing better than the world prison pagoda. At the thought of this, Yi Xian asked, Senior, why don't you look at it now? Mo Wuliang smiled. The old man wants to look at it now, but are you willing to let me look at it for free? Yi Xian smiled but didn't answer the question. Junior is willing to cooperate with Senior's act. Yi Xian smiled, then looked at Heavenly Masterly. The latter pointed his finger and the transfer stone landed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian kept the transfer stone, and just as he was about to leave, Mo Wuliang suddenly said, Later on, the old man will reveal little friend's whereabouts to them. The old man hopes that little friend can activate the transfer stone when they arrive. Little friend, rest assured, this transfer stone is special. Unless the Star Lord acts, otherwise they won't be able to stop you. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. With that, he was about to leave. But at this moment he seemed to have thought of something and turned to Mo Wuliang. Senior, may I ask, how did you know my whereabouts so accurately? Mo Wuliang said seriously, Little friend, your primal chaos energy is indeed impressive. However, it isn't omnipotent. In this period of time, there are countless people with special abilities. Don't underestimate anyone, especially the Order Alliance and the Tang clan. Yi Xian clasped his fists. Many thanks for the reminder. With that he turned and left. As for the question just now, he didn't ask again. Since the other party didn't want to say, if he asked again, it would seem like he had no sense of propriety. Yi Xian left without a sound, as if he had never appeared. Heavenly Masterly looked at Mo Wuliang with a serious expression. Master, what is that primordial energy? Mo Wuliang said softly, In the early stages of a universe's birth, there will be 3 types of energy. One is the primordial energy. Heavenly Masterly asked, What about the other 2? Mo Wuliang said, Yin and Yang, one Yin and one Yang, they have the power to destroy heaven and earth. As he spoke, he looked at Heavenly Masterly. Heavenly Master, you have to remember that you can be ambitious, but ambition is a double-edged sword. If you don't handle it well, you'll die a horrible death. Heavenly Masterly nodded. I will follow Master's teachings. Mo Wuliang nodded. Let them in. Heavenly Masterly retreated. Not long after, Celestial Masterly walked in with the 2 of them. At this moment, a water screen appeared in the middle of the hall. Something seemed to be forming in the water screen. Qin Tian and the black-robed old man stared fixedly at the water screen. In next to no time, a figure appeared within it, and it was Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was in the City of Order. At this time, the scene suddenly stopped and the water curtain disappeared. Not far away, Mo Wuliang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the ground was covered with it. Not only that, his face was abnormally pale, as if he was about to die. Qin Tian was about to speak, but Mo Wuliang waved his hand. Quickly go and capture him. The old man will be fine after resting for 2 months. Qin Tian nodded. Sect head Mo, take care. With that, he and the black-robed old man disappeared. As soon as the 2 of them disappeared, Heavenly Masterly hurriedly said, Master, Emma Wuliang said softly. Life is like a play and sometimes we have to act. From now on if anyone comes looking for me tell them that I'm recuperating. With that he turned and left. In the city of order. At the corner of the city Zhou Xian suddenly stood up. The moment he stood up 2 people appeared in front of him. It was Qin Tian and the black-robed old man. Apart from these 2, there were 7 experts around them. All of them were in the Dao realm. Qin Tian looked at Zhou Xian. Surprised? Zhou Xian said in a low voice, "That's impossible. You can't find me." Qin Tian said indifferently, "Zhou Xian, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. You have 2 choices now. First, hand over that treasure. Second, fight all of us alone." At this point he smiled. Of course you can also choose to escape. However, we've already reinforced the surrounding space. If you want to use the space to escape you'll have to break through all of our powers by yourself. Zhou Xian was silent. Qin Tian slowly clenched his right hand. Have you thought it through? Zhou Xian nodded. Yes. With that he looked at Qin Tian. I choose the third option. Qin Tian nodded and made an inviting gesture. Please begin your performance. A stone suddenly appeared in Zhou Xian's palm. It was the teleportation stone. He circulated his Xianxia and in the next moment he disappeared. The air in the field suddenly froze. Gone. Qin Tian and the others looked at each other. In the next moment, Qin Tian suddenly appeared where Zhou Xian was. He pressed his palm down lightly. The space was undamaged. In other words, Zhou Xian didn't break through space. Then the question came. How did he escape? Meanwhile, the black-robed old man spoke abruptly. We shouldn't have given him any chance. We should have swarmed him and annihilated him the moment we saw him. All the experts in the surroundings looked at Qin Tian. Even though they didn't say anything, they couldn't help but grumble in their hearts. Let him perform? That was great. That performance wasn't just ordinarily brilliant. Qin Tian's expression was unsightly to the extreme. He'd originally thought that it was absolutely foolproof. Even if Zhou Xian grew wings, it would be impossible for him to escape. However, Zhou Xian had slapped him in the face. Qin Tian spoke in a low voice. Let's return to the Dao sect. As soon as he finished speaking, he led the group away. In next to no time, Qin Tian led the group to the Dao sect once more. Heavenly Master Li appeared before Qin Tian. Guardian Qin, did you capture Zhou Xian? Qin Tian's expression was rather unsightly. Heavenly Master Li's face sank. You let him escape again? Qin Tian nodded. Yes. Brother Li, can you let your master make a move again? Heavenly Master Li smiled bitterly. Brother Qin, you saw my master's state with your own eyes. He's already suffering from a backlash. If he's not careful, his life will be in danger. If he were to make a move again now, he'll definitely die. Furthermore, with his current state, even if he makes a move, he might not be able to find out Zhou Xian's whereabouts. Qin Tian said in a low voice, Is it really that serious? Heavenly Master Li pointed to the pool of blood on the ground. Brother Qin, look. This is blood essence. You don't know how powerful that formation is. You should also know that prying into the heavenly secrets will cause you to be targeted by the Tendo. Sai, it's not easy in our line of work. Qin Tian's face twitched as he looked at Heavenly Master Li. Heavenly Master Li said again, Brother Qin, it's not that Master doesn't want to help, but he's really powerless right now. Qin Tian said in a low voice, When will sect leader Mo recover? Heavenly Master Li thought for a moment before saying, 2 months. Qin Tian nodded. We'll look for sect leader Mo in 2 months. With that he turned around and left with everyone. Heavenly Master Li instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Qin Tian and the others leave. If the Order Alliance were to go head-on, then the Liang Dao sect would definitely be no match for them. However, 2 months from now, Heavenly Master Li frowned deeply when he thought up to this point. After Qin Tian and the others left the Liang Dao sect, the black-robed old man suddenly said, Guardian Qin, I think there's something wrong with Heavenly Master Li. Qin Tian said indifferently, Are you trying to say that they don't want to help us? The black-robed old man nodded. I have that feeling. Qin Tian said softly, What's the reason? What reason do they have to help Zhou Xian? The black-robed old man fell silent. Qin Tian said in a low voice, Our Order Alliance is in need of manpower now. We need to do our best to rope in the Liang Dao sect and not offend them so that they can side with the Tang clan. The black-robed old man nodded. Understood. Tendo Qin said, we'll come again in 2 months. When that time comes he shouldn't have any more excuses. Tell our people not to go out and look for that person. I'm going back. Also keep an eye on the Tang clan at all times. That treasure can be in Yi Xian's hands, but it can't be in the Tang clan's hands. After saying that he quickly disappeared not too far away. The black-robed old man and the others also disappeared. Hundreds of thousands of miles to the right of the Order City, there was a small mountain with a pool on it. As the small mountain was a volcano, the temperature of the pool was very high, just like boiling water. There was an invisible light screen around the pool that enveloped the entire pool. Strange energy flickered around the light screen. Clearly it was an array formation. In the middle of the pool sat a woman with her legs crossed. The woman's long hair was like a waterfall, her eyebrows were like swords, and there was a small mole at the corner of her mouth. She was very beautiful. The water in the pool was already boiling, but the woman's body was completely fine. Beneath the ground, some mysterious energy was gathering towards the woman. The woman's body was frantically absorbing the energy. Gradually, her body began to tremble and her brows furrowed. Obviously, it was a critical moment. At this moment, a figure suddenly landed in front of the woman. Flush. Water splashed everywhere. Pfft. The woman suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. She opened her eyes and saw a man standing in front of her. The man was about 20 years old, wearing a blue and white robe, and there was a sheathed sword hanging on his waist. The man was naturally Yi Xian. After he activated the teleportation stone just now, he felt dizzy. That feeling was very uncomfortable. He wanted to vomit. At this moment Yi Xian looked in front of him. When he saw the woman in front of him he was instantly stunned. So beautiful. That was Yi Xian's first impression. Of course that was not the point. The point was that the woman was naked. At this moment Yi Xian could not help but sigh. She was really beautiful. However, after taking a look he closed his eyes tightly. One should not be a pervert. Yi Xian would not take advantage of others' difficulties. Of course, the problem he had to consider now was how to resolve this misunderstanding. Yi Xian said very seriously, "Miss, if I say that this is a misunderstanding, would you believe me?" The woman looked at Yi Xian, did not speak, nor did she move. There was a flow of energy flowing in her body. Yi Xian said again, "Miss, you should quickly put on your clothes." "Don't worry, I've already closed my eyes. I can't see anything. Really, I can't see anything." Chapter 565. The woman still did not speak. She just looked at Yi Xian calmly. She did not feel embarrassed or angry that a man had seen her naked. Yi Xian saw that the atmosphere was not right. He cupped his fists and said, "Miss, this was indeed an accident. I did not see anything. We will meet again." With that he turned around and left. The moment he turned around, the woman behind him suddenly threw a punch at his back. Fast. Like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. Sensing the woman's sudden attack, Yi Xian turned around and blocked with his arms. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly thrown dozens of feet away. After stopping, Yi Xian's expression became extremely serious. Because at that moment his arms had cracked. Not only that, his internal organs felt very uncomfortable, as if they had been torn apart. What a strong force! Yi Xian raised his head and looked not far away. At that moment the woman had already put on her clothes. The woman was wearing a tight white dress with a purple ribbon tied around her waist, which made her figure appear even more graceful and fiery. The woman's beauty was not the same as other women's. Her eyebrows were like swords, her body was straight, and there was a sense of heroism in her beauty. The woman slowly walked towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian forcefully suppressed the discomfort in his heart and said in a low voice, "Miss, this is a misunderstanding." The woman did not speak. She slowly clenched her right hand. As she clenched her fist, Yi Xian suddenly felt an invisible pressure. So strong. Yi Xian's expression became more and more serious. This woman actually gave him a feeling that he was invincible. This was aura. The pressure that came from her aura. Just as Yi Xian was about to draw his sword, Tang Qing's voice suddenly sounded, "Ask her if her name is Zhao Mu." Yi Xian hesitated, then looked at the woman. "Are you Zhao Mu?" The The woman stopped and frowned slightly. She still did not speak, but there was a trace of doubt in her eyes. Tang Qing said softly, "It should be him. I advise you to run away quickly." Xian did not understand. Why? Tang Qing said, "Have you heard of the law rank?" Xian shook his head. Tang Qing said, "The so-called law rankings are the most valuable rankings in the entire Chaosverse. Of course, that's aside from the unknown divine kingdom. There were 10 people on the law rank and it was updated every year. In order to be on the list, there were 2 requirements. The first was that one had to be a Dao realm expert, and the second was that one had to be below the age of 25. The person before you is Xiao Mu, ranked 3rd on the law rank. Thirdly, do you know what that means?" Yes, she at least knew about the realm of dreams now. She is also the type that can challenge those of a higher level. Xian said solemnly, "Can't I beat him?" Tang Qing said calmly, "No, you're so powerful, how could you lose? However, Uncle Yi, do you think it's meaningful to fight with her? Moreover, the power behind this person isn't weak either. Do you really want to become enemies with the entire world?" Xian smiled sheepishly. "That's true. There's no point in fighting him." After saying that, he turned and ran. Seeing Xian run, Zhao Mu frowned. The next moment she tapped the ground with her toes and disappeared into the distance like an arrow. At the end of the horizon, Xian frowned when he sensed Zhao Mu chasing after him. "This woman isn't going to let me go." Tang Qing said calmly, "Who told you to look at her body?" Xian said, "I didn't do it on purpose." Tang Qing said, "I'll cut off your head and say it wasn't on purpose. Is that okay?" Xian was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Mu suddenly sped up. Xian didn't stop and continued to run. He didn't mind fighting with this woman, but he was afraid that this would attract the attention of the Orderly Order Alliance and the Tang clan. If that happened, it wouldn't be a one-on-one fight but a group fight. It didn't take long for Xian to arrive above an ocean, but Zhao Mu still hadn't left. Right at this moment, Zhao Mu suddenly stopped. She gazed at the ray of light in the sky and then she slowly closed her eyes. After a moment of silence, she took a step forward. Something seemed to have been torn apart here. In the next moment, a figure descended in front of Xian. It was Zhao Mu. Xian's expression changed when he witnessed this scene. "What sort of speed is that?" Zhao Mu gazed at Xian, and then she didn't waste her breath and just smashed her fist forward. This punch caused the space in front of Xian to be instantly torn apart. Xian didn't dare act carelessly when he saw this, and he immediately drew his sword and slashed. Bang! The ray of light instantly collapsed and then Xian was blasted 300 m back. When he stopped moving, the space around him had split apart completely. Xian's expression gradually turned solemn when he witnessed this scene. This woman's strength was not just an ordinary level of strength. Meanwhile, Zhao Mu suddenly raised her right hand towards the sky. In an instant, dark clouds covered the sky while countless bolts of lightning converged. In the next moment, she suddenly clenched her right hand. Swish! A bolt of lightning suddenly shot down from the sky and descended onto her fist. A bolt of lightning traversed the heavens and the earth. Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. What technique is that? Seems quite formidable. At this moment, Zhao Mu suddenly took a step forward. As soon as he did so, a bolt of lightning instantly appeared in front of Xian. It was impossible to dodge. This time Xian didn't dare act carelessly. He tightened his grip on the sword in his right hand, and a strand of mysterious energy suddenly converged into his sword. Dragon energy. Xian held the sword in his right hand and swung it down. Hiss! A ray of golden sword energy slashed down in a straight line. Rumble! The space in the surroundings suddenly shook violently, and then Xian retreated repeatedly. Zhao Mu was just about to follow up with another attack when 2 flying swords suddenly slashed towards her. Her brows knit together slightly and she raised her arms horizontally. Bang! The swords struck her arms, but she only moved around 3 m back. Moreover, her clothes weren't even torn apart. Xian's expression turned slightly unsightly when he witnessed this scene. Is she really that monstrous? At this moment his entire body felt limp and numb. If his sword hadn't blocked most of the energy of the lightning, then he might have been reduced to a dried corpse by now. Tang Qing spoke abruptly. "Do you think that you're the only monstrous genius in the younger generation?" Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhao Mu suddenly vanished. Yi Xian frowned slightly and then his figure flashed to the side. A bolt of lightning brushed past his chest, and then he drew his sword and swung it horizontally. This slash struck Zhao Mu's stomach. However, it wasn't able to break through Zhao Mu's body. It was like it had struck a piece of divine metal at the Dao realm. Yi Xian was about to withdraw his sword as soon as it failed to break through Zhao Mu's defenses. However, Zhao Mu suddenly raised her knee and struck him. Yi Xian hurriedly raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! Yi Xian retreated 1,000 feet in an instant. Moreover, his expression had turned extremely unsightly when he stopped. Because the creation realm sword in his hand had actually bent. That was a sword at the creation realm. Zhao Mu was about to attack again when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Stop for a moment." However, Zhao Mu didn't stop. She arrived in front of Yi Xian again and launched a side kick at Yi Xian's head. The space around Yi Xian collapsed as soon as he threw the kick. Yi Xian was shocked. He didn't take the kick head-on and he flashed backwards 300 m instead. However, he hadn't even stopped when an afterimage suddenly charged towards him. Everywhere the afterimage passed, the space collapsed inch by inch. Yi Xian frowned. This time he didn't retreat. He suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. In the next moment, countless flying swords instantly engulfed Zhao Mu. There was a moment of silence. Bang! Those flying swords suddenly collapsed, but in the next moment, another flying sword slashed towards him. Zhao Mu blocked with her arm. Bang! She instantly retreated over 30 m, but before she could stop, another flying sword slashed towards her. Just like that, Zhao Mu instantly retreated over 600 m. Flying swords crisscrossed all around her, one after another, not giving Zhao Mu any chance to catch her breath. However, these flying swords weren't able to do anything to Zhao Mu. Her physical body was too strong. At this moment, Zhao Mu's right palm suddenly pressed downwards. In the next moment she suddenly lifted it up. Bang! A powerful force suddenly exploded from her palm. In an instant the space around her exploded, and Yi Xian's flying swords vanished without a trace. A few breaths of time later the space around them returned to normal. At this moment they were 300 m apart. Zhao Mu gazed at Yi Xian, clenched her right hand and was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait." As he spoke with a serious expression. "Miss, do you know who I am?" Zhao Mu gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian said, "Let me tell you, I'm from the Order Alliance. Have you heard of the Order Alliance?" "You?" His voice stopped abruptly. Because Zhao Mu had suddenly charged towards him, but countless flying swords blocked her path in the next moment. Zhao Mu smashed her fist forward. A few breaths of time later all the flying swords had vanished. However, at the moment Yi Xian was gone. Zhao Mu's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she witnessed this scene. She glanced at the surroundings and her divine sense spread out like a net. However, she still didn't notice anything. After a moment of silence, she suddenly slapped her palm forward. Rumble. Where her palm landed, the space began to collapse inch by inch. In the blink of an eye, the space within a radius of 1000 m had collapsed. When the space was restored by the laws of heaven and earth, Zhao Mu was already gone. Zhao Mu arrived at the Order City. She glanced at the 3 words Order City on the city gate, and in the next moment she punched through the air. Boom! The entire city wall in front of her was directly smashed by her punch. Countless people in the Order City were shocked. Zhao Mu walked into the city and finally she arrived at the city lord's mansion. Lu Shibai walked out and when he saw Zhao Mu he frowned slightly. "Your Excellency." Before she could finish her sentence, Zhao Mu, who was in front of her, suddenly punched out. In an instant, countless lightning bolts bombarded the city lord's mansion like a storm. Lu Shibai's expression changed greatly, and his figure trembled as he retreated. Rumble. In an instant the entire city lord's mansion turned into ashes. Not far away, Lu Shibai's expression changed greatly, and he looked at Zhao Mu in horror. What terrifying strength! Meanwhile, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Mu. The black-robed old man stared fixedly at Zhao Mu. "Your Excellency, who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Order Alliance's territory? Are you tired of living?" Zhao Mu looked at the black-robed old man and in the next moment she suddenly vanished. Inch by inch the space here collapsed. P.S. Do you have tickets? I've been thinking a lot lately and I feel that I should ask for monthly tickets. Only by asking for monthly tickets will I have motivation, a huge motivation. Of course, I don't care about monthly tickets. Monthly tickets and rewards are nothing to me. What I care about is motivation. Yes, motivation. Conclusion. I want tickets for motivation. Asking for tickets. Asking for tickets. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.